So now we come to our chapter 17. Yesterday, we recapped very briefly the 16th chapter. The 16th chapter actually deserves a bigger recap, but you can go through it yourselves and you can take out all the different questions that Brajanath is challenging, in a sense, to Babaji. Why did Krishna make this world such a suffering place? Why did he give me independence? If Maya wasn't here, would I be able to function more positively in my connection with Krishna? So many questions that Brajana, all pertinent questions that we need to clear these doubts fully. So now we've come to this chapter 16, the 17, which is going to illuminate the jivas who are freed from Maya. Chapter 16 was the jivas who are bound by Maya. Now we're coming into this higher consideration of the jivas who are freed, liberated. The jivas freed from Maya is the chapter, this prameya. So we have three pramayas about the jiva. Jiva Tattva, Jiva bound by Maya, and Jiva liberated from Maya. Prior to that, it was Shakti Tattva. And prior to that, it was the um, Krishna Tattva, establishing Krishna as the supreme, Amnaya Praha, based on the evidence of the Vedic teachings. So this is the verses that we're scrolling through in this section. So 3 chapters on the Jiva. So Brajanath's grandmother completed all the arrangements for his marriage, and in the evening she explained everything to him. Why is Bhaktivinoda Thakur writing about marriage and the hero in this um, pastime, Brajanath, getting influenced and pushed into this marriage? Because this book, Jaivadharma, I've said before, was originally written for the Indian audience in India. And in India, every single young man has to face this same challenge with his family. Every single young man and young woman, all in this land of Bharatvash, practically none are exempt. All have to face the pressure of their parents encouraging them into marriage, whether they want it or not. They believe that this marriage is the foundation of their happiness, and it's also the foundation of the Indian society, they believe. This is Dharma, Artha, Karma, Moksha that we've been discussing. So all Indian young men are subject to this. So it's very relevant to any young Indian man. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's given the Shikshamrita, which was principally written with the Western focus in mind. But it seems like the Westerners have been more attracted to this Jaiva Dharma, and this has become more popular than the Shikshamrita. So, but we should understand why is it coming up so often, is because this is the reality of Indian life. Brajanath's grandmother completed all the arrangements for his marriage, and in the evening she explained everything to him. Brajanath simply took his meal in silence and made no reply that day. He lay awake on his bed late that night, deep in thought about the state of the pure spirit soul. Meanwhile, his elderly grandmother was busy trying to find ways of convincing him to agree to the marriage. So, such a contrast. Just then, Brajanath's maternal cousin, Veni Madhav, arrived. The girl that Brajanath was supposed to marry was Veni Madhav's paternal cousin, and Vijay Vidyaratna had sent him a finalizer to finalize the arrangements. Vijay Vidyaratna was the one with the girl who was proposing that Brajanath marry this girl. Veni Madhav inquired, "What's the matter, grandmother? Why are you delaying in arranging brother Braja's marriage?" The grandmother replied in a rather anxious voice, "My son, you are an intelligent boy. Perhaps you will change his mind if you speak to him. All my efforts have been in vain." Beni Madhav's character was clearly proclaimed by his short stature, small neck, black complexion, and his eyes which blinked frequently. It's very inauspicious, in fact, for someone to blink their eyes, like the demigods don't blink. But inauspicious people, they blink a lot. He liked to pry into everything that was going on rather than taking care of his own business, but his involvement in others' affairs was never particularly useful. After listening to the old lady, he frowned slightly, then boasted, "This is no problem. I just need your permission. Veni Madhav can accomplish anything. You know me quite well. I can make money just out of counting the waves." And there's a footnote which describes how one businessman was condemned by the government and cast onto a um, a peninsula as a punishment, and he decided to count the various waves and to tax all the trade ships that were going by on the in connection with the calculate in connection with the waves that were being brought ashore by the boats. It's a sort of an allegory, and there's a footnote describing this. But counting waves means that you can do anything. If you can make money by counting waves, it means you can do anything. I can make money just by counting waves. Let me discuss this with him just once, and if I succeed, then you'll treat me to a nice feast of puris and kachoris. Brajanath had taken his meal and was as Oh, Brajanath has taken his meal and he's asleep now, said grandmother. All right, I'll come in the morning and put things in order, replied Veni Madhav, and returned home. The next day he returned early in the morning, carrying a lota in his hand, and completed his morning ablutions. When Brajanath saw him, he was a little surprised and said, Brother, how have you come so early in the morning? Veni Madhav answered, Dada. This is a way of expression to it's a respectful expression to Brajanath that he's giving. Dada, you have been studying and teaching Nyaya Shastra for a long time now. You are the son of Pandit Harinath Chudamani, and you have become famous all over the country. You are the only surviving male member of the house, and if you don't have any heirs, who do you suppose will take care of this big house of yours? Brother, we have a request. Please get married. Brajanath replied, Brother, don't give me unnecessary trouble. Nowadays I'm accepting the shelter of Sri Gaur Sundar's bhaktas, and I don't have any desire to get involved in worldly affairs. I feel real peace in the company of the Vaishnavas in Mayapur, and I don't find any attraction for this world. I will either accept sannyas or spend my life in the shelter of the Vaishnava's lotus feet. I have expressed my heart to you because I know that you are my close friend, but don't disclose this to anyone else. Beni Madhav understood that nothing but trickery could change Brajanath's mind, so he cleverly curbed his feelings, and in order to create a particular impression, he said, I have always remained your assistant in whatever you have done. I used to carry your books when you were studying in the Sanskrit school, so I will carry your staff and water pot when you accept sannyas. It is difficult to understand the minds of wicked people. They have two tongues, and they say one thing with one and exactly the opposite with the other. They are bandits in the garb of saints, carrying the name of Sri Ram in the mouth and a knife under the armpit. Rajanath was a simple person. Warming to Veni Madhav's sweet words, he said, Brother, I've always regarded you as my dear friend. Grandmother is just an old woman, and she doesn't understand serious matters. She is very enthusiastic to drown me in this ocean of worldly affairs by getting me married to some girl. It will be a relief if you can change her mind and somehow dissuade her. I will always be indebted to you. Veni Madhav replied, No one will dare to oppose your desire as long as Shamarama is living. Dada, you will see that I am capable of. You will see what I am capable of. But just let me know one thing. Why have you developed such hatred towards this world? Who is advising you to cultivate such feelings of renunciation? Rajanath explained about his renunciation and said, There is one elderly and experienced Babaji called Raghunath Das Babaji in Mayapur. He is my instructor, and I go every day after dusk to the shelter of his feet to find relief from the burning fire of this material world. He is very merciful to me. The evil Venimadov started thinking, now I understand Brother Braja's weakness. He has to be brought back to the right track by deception, force, or skill. Outwardly he said, Brother, don't worry. I am going home now, but I will gradually change grandmother's mind. Benimada pretended to take the road that led to his home, but instead he took another way and reached Shivasangan in Mayapur. There he sat on the raised platform under the bakul tree and began to admire the opulences of the Vaishnavas. These Vaishnavas are actually enjoying the world. They have such beautiful houses and lovely kunjas. This is such a nice dais in a wonderful courtyard. In each of the courtiers a Vaishnava sat, chanting Harinam on his beads. They seemed quite content, like the bulls of religion. The women of the neighboring villages who came to bathe in the Ganga of their own accord supplied the Vaishnavas with fruits, vegetables, water, and various edibles. Venimadov thought the Brahmanas have systemized karma kand to receive these facilities, but instead these groups of Babajis are enjoying the cream. All glories to Kali Yuga. These disciples of Kali are having a wonderful time. Oh, my birth in a high Brahmin family is useless. No one even cares about us anymore. What to speak of offering us fruits and water? These Vaishnavas even condemn learned Brahmanas and abuse and insult us by calling us lowly and foolish. Brother Braja fits this description quite well though. Although he's such a well-educated man, he seems to have sold himself to these sly, loinclothed people. I, Venimadov, will reform Brajanath and these Babajis as well. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is painting a remarkable character here into the pastime. Thinking like this, Venimadov entered one of the kutyas, which happened to be the one in which Sri Raghunath Das Babaji was sitting on a mat made of banana leaves, chanting his Harinam. A person's character is evident from his face, and the aging Babaji could understand that Kali personified had entered in the form of this son of a Brahmana. Vaishnavas, Vaishnavas consider themselves lower than a blade of grass. They offer respect to those who insult them, and they pray for the well-being of an opponent, even if he tortures them. Accordingly, Babaji Mahashai respectfully offered Venimadov a seat. Venimadov had no Vaishnava qualities at all, so after sitting down, he offered his blessings to Babaji Maharaj, considering himself above all Vaishnava etiquette. Baba, what is your name? What brings you here? Inquired Babaji Mahashai informally. So there's two ways to address in the verbal dialogue of um, in Bengali or in Hindi also. This tum is a informal way. It means like a friendship way, and then there's a more respectful way to address someone. So he's respected him. He's addressed him in an informal way, and now Veni Madhav is going to take offense to that. What brings you here? Inquired Babaji Mahashai informally. Veni Madhav became furious by being addressed informally, and he said angrily, Oh Babaji, can you become equal to the Brahmins just by wearing a kopin, loincloth? Never mind. Just tell me, do you know Brajanath Nyaya Panchanana? Babaji, understanding the reason for his annoyance, please excuse this old man. Don't become offended by my words. Yes, Brajanath comes here sometimes by his own mercy. Venimadov, don't think that he's a simpleton. He comes here with inferior motives. He is being polite at first to gain your confidence. The Brahmanas of Belkapur are extremely annoyed with your behavior, and they have consulted with each other and decided to send Brajanath to you. You are an old man. Just be careful. I will keep coming from time to time to inform you of how their conspiracy progresses. Don't tell him about me. Otherwise you will otherwise you will run into even deeper trouble. I will take leave for today." So saying, Venimadov got up and returned to his home. Later that afternoon, while Brajanath sat on the veranda after his meal, Venimadov suddenly appeared, as if from nowhere, sat next to him, and struck up a conversation. "Brother, I went to Mayapur for some business today," he began. "There I saw an old man, maybe Raghunath Das Babaji. We were talking about things in general, and then the conversation turned to you. The things he said about you. I have never heard such repulsive things being spoken about any Brahmin. In the end, he said, I will bring him down from his high Brahminical status by feeding him leftovers from many low caste people. Fie on him! It is not proper for a learned man like you to associate with such a person. You will ruin the high prestige of the Brahmanas if you act like this." So this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur constructing this beautiful picture. Brajanath was astounded to hear Veni Madhav say all this. For some unknown reason, his faith and respect for the Vaishnavas and old Babaji Maharaj only doubled, and he said gravely, "Brother, I am busy at present. You go now. I will hear everything from you tomorrow and make a decision then." Veni Madhav went away. Brajanath now became fully aware of Veni Madhav's two-tongued nature. He was well versed in the Nyaya Shastra, and although he had a natural dislike for wickedness, the thought that Vedi Madhav would help him on the path to sannyas had induced Brajanath to be friendly towards him. Now, however, he understood that all Veni Madhav's sweet words had been for a particular motive. After further thought, Brajanath realized that Veni Madhav was acting deceitfully because he was involved in the marriage proposal. That must be why he had gone to Mayapur. So now to sow the seed of some secret plot. He prayed in his mind, "O Bhagavan, let my faith in the lotus feet of my Gurudev and the Vaishnavas remain firm. May it never be reduced by the disturbance of such impure people." He remained absorbed in these thoughts until evening. Then he started out for Srivasanga, arriving there deep in anxiety. Back in Mayapur, after Veni Madhav had left, Babaji thought, "This man is certainly a Brahma Rakshasa. Rakshasa Kalim Ashrita Jayante Brahma Yonishu. Taking shelter of Kali Yuga, Rakshasas take birth in Brahmana families." This statement of Shastra certainly holds true for that person. His face clearly shows his pride in his high caste, his false prestige, his envy of Vaishnavas, and his religious hypocrisy. His short neck, his eyes, and his deceptive way of talking actually represent his internal state of mind. This man is a complete asura by nature, whereas Brajanath is such a sweet-natured person. O Krishna, O Gauranga, never give me association of such a person. I must warn Brajanath today. As soon as Brajanath reached the kutia, Babaji called out to him affectionately, "Come, Baba, come," and embraced him. Brajanath's throat choked with emotion, and tears started flowing from his eyes as he fell down at Babaji's feet. Babaji picked him up very affectionately and said gently, a black complexioned Brahmin came here this morning. He said some agitating things and then went away again. Do you know him?" Brajanath, "Prabhu, your good self told me earlier that there are different kinds of jivas in this world. Some of them are so envious that without any cause they find satisfaction in troubling other jivas. Our brother Veni Madhav is one of the leaders of that category. I will be glad if we don't discuss him further. It is his very nature to criticize you to me and me to you, and to cause disputes between us by manufacturing false accusations. I hope you didn't pay any attention to what he said." Babaji, "Ha Krishna, Ha Gauranga, I have been serving the Vaishnavas for many days now, and by their mercy, I have received the power to tell the difference between a Vaishnava and a non-Vaishnava. You don't need to say anything to me. You don't need to say anything to me about this. So I think it's always very beautiful the way that Bhaktivinoda Thakur shows that neither Brajanath nor Babaji want to get into talking about this topic. Yes, they both appreciate the absolute fallen nature of Venimada, but neither of them want to drop into gossip about him and condemning him, etc., and into that mood of fault finding, even towards someone like Venimada. So both of them don't have a desire for that. So we should also follow this example. Brajanath, please forget all this and tell me how a jiva can become free from the clutches of Maya. He completely wants to go out of this um, uh, conversation altogether. Babaji, you will get your answer in the seventh shlok of Das Mula. Yada Brahman Hariras Galad Vaishnava Janam Kachit Samprasyan Tad Anugamane Syad Ruchiyat Yuta Tad Krishna Vritya Tyajati Sanakye Mayaka Dasham Swarupam Vibrano Vimalarasabhogam Sa Kurute. Dasmula 7. By the way, these dasmulas are so potent. We can go through each chapter and just look at the dasmulas. And by our absorption carefully in each chapter previously, like when we were recapping, I just recapped from the Dasmula 6, from the last chapter. And then we recapped from the Dasmula 5, from the chapter prayer previously. So these Dasmulas capsulate, summarize the entirety of the chapter we're about to open out. And it's very interesting, as I commented last time, when we complete the chapter, to come back to this Dasmula and see how much more we've understood it. Today, we're going to understand it to a certain degree, but when we've completed the chapter, it'll be much more open, and so much more will be revealed from this verse. When, in the course of wandering amongst the higher and lower species in the material world, a jiva is able to behold a Vaishnava absorbed in the flowing rasa of Sri Hari Bhakti, taste arises in his heart for following the Vaishnava's way of life. By chanting Sri Krishna Nam, he gradually becomes free from his conditioning. Step by step, he then gains his intrinsic Chinmoy Swarup, transcendental form, and becomes qualified to taste the pure and spiritual rasa of direct service to Sri Krishna. So the whole chapter is going to be unpacking this verse, which is soaked in beautiful precepts and the direction for us. Association, principally it's association. When we come into the association of practically every chapter we've read touches on this point of Vaishnava association, sadhu sangha. Without this connection, how can we connect to the current? The current is flowing just like an electric current. You have to put in with your wire, so to speak. You have to connect through the Vaishnava's mercy, through Guru and the senior Vaishnavas. Brajanath, I would like to hear some evidence from the Vedas to verify this. Babaji, it is said in the Upanishads, Samane Vrikshe Purusho Nimagano, Nashyai Sochiti Muya Mana, Justam Yada Pashyati Anyam Isham, Asya Mahimanam Eti Vita Shokaha. Mundaka Upanishad 3.1.2 and Svetashvara Upanishad 4.7. The jiva and the indwelling Paramatma both reside in the body like two birds in the same tree. The jiva is sunk in the bodily conception of life because of his attachment to material sense enjoyment, and we've described this fully in the 16th chapter. He's attached to material sense enjoyment because his nature is anandvyasat, his nature is pleasure seeking. His nature is, by nature, he's blissful. So he wants to enjoy. So if he's not enjoying in connection with Krishna's service, he will be definitely looking for pleasure from the illusory material energy. Bewildered by Maya, he cannot find any means of deliverance, yes, constantly suffering, and thus he laments and falls down. When the jiva has darshan of the other person within his heart, namely the Supreme Lord, who is served eternally by his unalloyed bhaktas, he witnesses Krishna's uncommon glories. So that Paramatma is a witness, as we've described. That witness is called Antaryami. Antaryami means witness. So Antaryami is witnessing all our activities, and it is the Supreme Lord within the heart. But he's not interfering with our independence. This is the point to appreciate. He witnesses Krishna's uncommon glories. He then becomes free from all lamentation and attains his glorious position as Krishna's servant. Yes, he wakes up to his constitutional position as a servant of the Lord. All of these chapters are saying the same principle, that the jiva is very small and Ishvara is vibhuchit, is great. We simply have to put that in order and be submissive to Krishna. That's actually all we have to do. And then everything else will be revealed if this particular point is fully realized in the heart, that I am insignificant and Krishna is fully significant. And the way to realize this is to realize more and more of the beauty and speciality of Krishna, particularly in his manifest pastimes in Vrindavan and in Goradam, and throughout the Shrimad Bhagavatam, all the different avatars that are spoken about and glorified. Prithu Maharaj or Dhruva Maharaj, Bali Maharaj, Vamana Maharaj, Varahadev, all these different personalities, all engendering sambandha within the heart of the jiva, this relationship between the jiva and Krishna of submission to whatever Krishna desires. I just want to facilitate his pleasure, exactly as Sri Radhika is doing with every fiber of her body. We want to emulate that. And ultimately, we want to serve Sri Radhika for that purpose.
So in every way, in all ways, just compare ourselves to Krishna, then automatically we
compare ourselves. Yes, if we understand Krishna's greatness and my insignificance, then everything becomes reconciled. The life becomes very clear. Just simply that one point. There's a verse, what is it? Smartavya Shatadam Vishnu, Vishmartavya Nakatuchit. That always, what is it? Always remember Krishna, Smartavya, and never forget Krishna. And how to remember Krishna is by hearing his leelas and pastimes, and how extraordinary wonderful. We say this beautiful verse often, Anugrahaya Bhaktanam Manusyam Deha Ashrita Bhajate Tat Rishi Kritva Yashrutva Tatparo Bhavet. That Krishna manifests in the human-like form just to demonstrate the glories of his sweet pastimes, to attract us to his service. He manifests in this way to attract us. Pastimes like the Ras Leela, for example, which are so attractive that pull us to want to please him and serve him. This is the current. This is the place where we are looking anxiously.
It's all about the attraction.
Yes, to connect. The name Krishna means attraction, all attractive. That's what the name means. This Brajanath, this shloka states that when the jiva sees the worshipable Lord, he becomes free forever from all anxieties and directly perceives his magnificence. Does this imply liberation? Now, this is the important point. Babaji, liberation means to be released from the clutches of Maya. Only those who have the association of saintly people attain this liberation. But the real subject of research is the glorious position that one receives after attaining liberation, beyond illiberation. What is that place after illiberation? Liberation is just freedom from the temporary material illusion. But what is the activity of the soul then? So the soul now has become liberated from the attraction to Maya. But now what? That's like the negative aspect, the Tatashta Lakshan. But what is the Sarup Lakshan, which is the higher, the internal consideration, is what is the activity of my soul now? All right, my soul has been released from that attraction to Krishna. Some people just remain there. This is called Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. They remain in that liberated condition, freed from the pushings of Maya, but they haven't developed their sambandha yet with Krishna. So those souls, they will remain in that Brahmajyoti area where we originated from, without sambandha, because there will be a single person then. The word love implies two. There has to be a lover and a beloved. There has to be two. And there has to be the dynamic of love in between it, actually three ultimately. This is sambandha. So if there's no sambandha, then how can that natural loving tendency manifest in any way? It can't. So after the stage of liberation is what has to be considered deeply. And this is what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to address.
Sure, Papa will say, that stage is called Brahma Bhuta.
Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, na sochati na kanchati. Yes, I said this. All completely liberated from the material suffering. But the next stage,
It's like a
Sarva
neutral
Bhutam
stage,
Hrideshu, yes, the next stage after that.
Yes, yes.
So the real subject of research is the glorious position that one receives after attaining liberation. Muktiya hitvanyita rupam surapena vyavashtitahai. Vashtiti. Bhagavatam 2.10.6. The jiva, in his original constitutional form, is a pure servant of Krishna. Again and again and again and again. This is what we're hearing from the very beginning to the very end. Because this is the where we have doubt. We hear it with our intelligence, but it can't enter the heart when there's a question of doubt. When there's any sort of doubt, we can hear it. Intelligence is one thing, but to realize it in the heart, that's another consideration. That takes practice and time and assimilation and absorption in this truth regularly, day by day. In every activity we perform, we want to appreciate this one single point. I am a servant of the Supreme Lord. Supreme Lord is the highest energetic influence, and I am insignificant. When I'm trying to usurp that position, then I get so many problems every single day. The jiva, in his original constitutional form, is a pure servant of Krishna. When he falls down into the darkness of nescience, it is dark. In that world, there's no sunlight in the mind. The mind gets closed off to the purity and sweetness of that transcendental world. Literally, it gets dark. You see someone's face, like it's described Veni Madhav. He's dark complexioned. He's dark minded. He's always deceitful. He's trying to trick, saintly people. This is aparad. So a darkness will come. He falls down into the darkness of nescience. He has to accept gross and subtle material bodies. Liberation means to abandon these extraneous forms completely and to be situated in one's original spiritual swarup. There's many examples in the Bhagavatam how the personalities like Prithu Maharaj, like Yudhisthira Maharaj, they drop their gross and subtle forms, and then they can attain to their higher spiritual form. Dropping the two forms is the first stage of liberation. But then what do we do once we've dropped those forms is to wake up our swarup in service. We talked today in the Falshruti, this Amala Prem Seva. Seva requires two. There must be a person who's serving an object. There has to be two for that. This is the ingredient of love. We miss it if we just think it's one. That impersonal conception. This half shloka explains that liberation means to abandon these other forms and to be situated in one's swarup. Attaining one's constitutional position is the necessity for the jivas. Yes, we're never going to be satisfied until we feel that we've come to our constitutional position. There will always be a rumbling in the heart. There will always be a restlessness, a disturbance of the mind. until we actually reach that consummation of waking up my soul and again functioning as a pure spirit soul rather than as a dull material mind and body and intelligence, etc. So it's a question of purification. From the very first day we come to Krishna consciousness, we realize this journey is a question of purification, purification of the mind and the subtle body and the gross activities, etc., to come to the awareness of my identity as a soul. That means my identity in activity, not just my impersonal identity as an atomic jiva. That's the Brahmabhuta platform without the connection. Attaining one's constitutional position is necessary for the jiva. The work of liberation is complete the moment the jiva is released from the clutches of Maya. Then so many activities begin once he attains his natural constitutional position. This is the fundamental necessity of attainment, Mool Prayojan, of the jiva. Freedom from intense misery can be called liberation, but following liberation, there is another stage in which a person achieves spiritual happiness, Chit Shuka. Yes, Chit coming from the Chit Shakti. This state is described in the Chandogya Upanishad 8.12.3. Evam evyase samprasado smak chirat samutaya param jyoti rupam sampadhyay svena rupena abhi nishpadyate. Sa uttama purusha sa tatra prayati jakshan kridan ramana ramanana ramamana ramanana ramamana. When the jiva achieves liberation, he transcends he transcends the gross and subtle material bodies. We've already gone into great detail at the end of the last chapter of the nature of the gross and subtle bodies in the regards to the elements, etc. So when I'm released from that control, then released from these material bodies and is situated in his own non-material spiritual state. I'm only in a material state as long as I have these two bodies, the gross body and the subtle body. When these two bodies are purified, then immediately I'm given access to the higher spiritual consciousness. Immediately. Complete with his spiritual effulgence. This means with his brilliance. And this can be a fall down for some. When they get liberated from their material bodies, because of their intense brightness, then they can start to believe that actually they are God. There was one yogi, and I can remember reading his biography, and he goes through a whole process of meditation. And at the end, he sees a blue pearl, and he sees inside the blue pearl a little blue boy. And rather than just fall in love with that boy and serve him, he thinks, oh, this is me. I am God like I always thought I was God. Because of that seed of desire from the very beginning hasn't been purified by higher association. If we don't get that higher association, then in the very last moment, you can become illusioned by your own brilliant effulgence to think that you are that supreme God. So it's a razor's edge. He then becomes transcendently situated in that spiritual atmosphere. He becomes absorbed in enjoyment, bhoga, activities, krida, and bliss. So this absorption in this spiritual atmosphere is one of service. You cannot access the spiritual world without a mood of service. It can either be reverential service in Vaikuntha, or it can be the sweet savor of Vrindavan, or the sweet savor of Goradam. But there's savor. The savor is the connecting point between the bewildered jiva and the Supreme Lord. When the jiva is no longer bewildered, about his own identity as Anuchit, very small, and Krishna as the Ishvara, and to serve and to manifest this Sambandha Gyan, then his fortune is complete. Then he will serve the Lord with great, with all his heart. Brajanath, what are the symptoms of those who are liberated from Maya? So this is an important point. Babaji, they have 8 symptoms, which Chandogya Upanishad describes as follows. Ya Atma Pahata Papma Bijaro Vimrityur Vishoko Vigatso Pipasa Satya Karma Satya Sankalpa So No Vestavaha. The liberated soul has 8 qualities. He is freed from all sinful activity, as well as the addiction to sinful activities that arise because of the nescience of Maya. He is not subject to the miseries of old age. He always remains young and fresh, even though the body, like we know in my Gurudev, for example, in his apparent older age, he was always totally youthful internally. It was never that it seemed that he had caved in to becoming like an old man. He was always vigorously happy and joyful internally. The body, of course, is breaking down, but the internal youthfulness is ever present. This is the example of a liberated soul, completely liberated, because internally he's not being affected by the breakdown of the material body. All of our bodies are going to break down. How affected? If we're thinking I'm the body, then we're thinking I'm breaking down. But if we're in knowledge that I'm not the body, then we're just aware that the body is transitioning to another body. And it has to break down, just like an old motor car. It has to break down. And once the car stops and doesn't go anymore, you climb out and you get into a new car. And the liberated soul is fully realized in this. Therefore, when the body is breaking down, he still has the same youthful, satisfied, happy spirit. He's not being disturbed by the body breaking down like that. This is symptom of a liberated soul.
What about in relation to the breakdown of the mind?
Interesting you say that, because I can remember one time directly with my Gurudev when his body was growing old like this, and one time he grabbed my arm, just grabbed and said, "My mind is as fast as it ever was." He just said that to me. For whatever reason, he said that directly, that the mind of a liberated soul is not breaking down, because the mind is absolutely pure. The mind has no contamination with matter. It's only the matter that is breaking down. The material body is breaking down. But the mind has become transcendently situated by its relationship with Krishna and its service attitude towards Krishna and Guru and the Guru Vargya. So the mind doesn't break down. So I remember this point distinctly. I'm happy you brought it up. He grabbed me and just said, my mind is absolutely crystal clear. He said like that, you know.
Interesting, because regards to my father, the doctors pronounced that he had Alzheimer's, his mind's breaking down.
You have to say it briefly.
So in regards to my father, everyone was telling him that he had Alzheimer's, that his mind is not all together, or not very stable. But he once told me, he said, "Don't believe all these claims. My mind's still sharp."
Was your father a liberated soul?
Yeah, my father.
He was a liberated soul?
Well,
we don't know. Liberated only means one thing, means you're connected with transcendence in service.
Yeah.
That's what a liberated soul is.
Yeah.
Not just able to control the mind at the time of death. That's the first stage. But there's much beyond there. We have to appreciate the real nuances of this. It's not...
Yeah, the point he was trying to make is that...
I understand.
The point he was trying to make is that don't believe what the others are saying.
Yes. Many times, actually, we see in our Guru Varga, like Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj, He also, when he was leaving this world for the last few months of his manifest pastimes, was exhibiting like what we could say was like an Alzheimer type thing, like forgetfulness and so on, simply because he wanted to be completely detached from this world. And many great saintly people, they actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself, he put himself in seclusion for the final 6 months of his life and wasn't practically communicating with anybody. They wanted to have that time before they actually leave, just to be completely alone like that. So they manifest these as a defense system, so to speak, to just keep the social chitter chatter away.
My father was 3 months. He done it purposely too.
Mm-hmm.
Just he wouldn't communicate.
Nice, nice. He is not subject to the miseries of old age. He always remains young and fresh and has no tendency to decay. He never comes to an end or dies. He is never morose. He has no sensual desires. He has a material, he has a natural inclination towards serving Krishna with no other desires, and all of his desires become realized. These 8 qualities are absent from the Bada Jivas. From the Bada Jivas, they don't have these qualities. So the Nitya Muktas is what we're talking about. We're not talking about Bada Jivas experiencing something like that. So perhaps your father was very purified, but he wasn't a Nitya Siddha Jiva. So therefore that would have been Bada Jiva, but he was an elevated soul and he had some experience there. So our time is complete and we can meditate on these 8 symptoms of the liberated soul, because this is what's going to be unpacked through the rest of this beautiful chapter. Jaiva Dhamma ki jai. Mukta Jivas ki jai. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Gaur Premanande. So now we come to page 386. And yesterday, just before we concluded, we talked about the 8 qualities of a liberated soul. So I'm just going to read that through one more time. This is from the Chandogya Upanishad, just for our appreciation again. However we heard it yesterday, we can hear it again today and see if our realization and appreciation is deeper today than what it was yesterday. This is what I keep on stressing, how this process is evolving through the accumulation and assimilation of all these various truths we keep absorbing ourselves in day by day. Therefore, it's tragic if we stop our study or stop our reading or stop our chanting, etc. Then we can't become inspired to move forward. So we have to keep that momentum, that inspiration going. So I'll read this again. The liberated soul has 8 qualities. He is freed from all sinful activities. Sinful, just in a nutshell, is turning away from Krishna, vimuk. If we have that tendency to turn away, so a liberated soul will never turn away from Krishna because he's experienced the potency and sweetness and beauty of the Lord, as well as the addiction to sinful activities that arises because of the nescience of Maya. Yes, he's liberated from that inclination to turn away from Krishna. He's liberated from that through his understanding, through mercy, through the mercy of the Vaishnavas, the mercy of the Dharma, etc., the mercy of Mahaprabhu. He is not subject to the miseries of old age. And I described this yesterday, how internally the liberated soul is never afflicted dramatically by the breakdown of the body. Yes, the body must break down, of all souls, but internally the liberated soul is not mentally becoming affected by the deterioration of his body. His mind will stay crystal clear on the goal and where he's going, and he'll just be observing, like backstage, so to speak, as his body is deteriorating. It won't be a reality internally for him. I can remember when my Gurudev was leaving this world, we have one astrologer who has been in our Sangha for a long time. His name's Budara Prabhu. And he sent us a chart of my Gurudev's situation when he was just before he left. And he was explaining how many malefic planets were attacking the body of my Gurudev. But my Gurudev was just sitting above, observing it all. Like the body materially was breaking down. So it breaks down into its elemental condition. That's the nature. So at that time, it appears to be a negative experience. But my Gurudev was just sitting above it, observing it. He wasn't involved in it really at all. It was just something that was going on separately, because the liberated soul knows he's not the body, that he's the Atma. It's just the first teachings of Bhagavad Gita, the second chapter. So it's the same principle. Always remains young and fresh and has no tendency to decay. He never comes to an end or dies. He never is morose. And I said yesterday that verse that Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, he reasons ill who tells that Vaishnavas die when thou art living still in sound. So we talk about Rupa Goswami, we talk about Sanatana Goswami, we talk about Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj, we talk about Jiva Goswami, we talk about all these, we even talk about Lord Nrsingadev, just like he was here yesterday practically, even though he came manifested millions of years ago. We talk about all the different avatars of Krishna, and we talk about all of the great stalwart personalities in our Guru Varga, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It's not that they have gone and left the conditioned soul bereft. They are fully present here. So they never die. They are eternal. That eternal nature is always permeating its atmosphere for us to connect with. If we are enthusiastic to do that, if we have this faith, this shraddha to connect, it's a fact. It's a fact. And all these truths will be manifest simply by the connection initially with the Hare Krishna mantra, because Mahaprabhu has invested all potencies conceivable within the mantra and has no tendency to decay. He never comes to an end or dies. He is never morose. My Gurudev used to say sometimes, because he used to be surrounded by so many mental Westerners, and he used to tell us, I've never been mental in my life. In my life, I've never been mental. Whole life, just completely not mental. So this is very inspiring. He has no sensual desires. Sensual desires means from the body. He has a natural inclination towards serving Krishna with no other desires, and all of his desires become realized. Yes, Krishna can fulfill all the desires of his surrendered Sharanagat, sadhak, devotee. Why not? Krishna can do anything. He creates universes, destroys them, and makes them again in a moment. So what can't he do? Don't limit Krishna to our material conceptions. These 8 qualities are absent from the Baddha Jivas. So in the Baddha Jiva consciousness, we have the reverse of these qualities. Brajanath, it is said in the Dasmula Shloka, the good fortune of the Jiva who is wandering aimlessly in the material world arises when he meets a Rasik Vaishnava who relishes the nectar of Hari. One might raise the objection that one could eventually attain Hari Bhakti by performing pious activities such as Astanga Yoga and cultivating Brahmagyan. In other words, by performing these pious activities, this will connect us to Krishna. Hang on, I don't quite understand this. One might raise the objection that one could eventually attain Hari Bhakti by performing pious activities. Yes, someone might consider that just by performing pious activities, they're going to connect with Hari. But Babaji has said no, by meeting a Rasik Vaishnava is the only way. And now he's going to give evidence for this. So Brajanath's objection is that couldn't we connect with the Supreme by pious activities such as Astanga Yoga and Brahmagyan? This is his proposition. Babaji, these are Sri Krishna's own words. Na rodhyayate mam yogo, na sankyam dharma evacha, na sadhyayas tapas tagyo, nesta purtram putam, na dakshina. Ritani yagnas chandamsi titani nayama yamaha. Yata varunde sat sangha sarva sangha paho hi mam. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:12, verses 1 and 2. The translation. Sri Bhagavan said, I am not controlled by those who perform yoga, study Sankhya philosophy, perform religious duties and pious activities, study the Vedas, perform penances and austerities, practice renunciation or accept sannyas, perform sacrifice and welfare activities, give donations in charity, practice fasting and other vows, perform yajna, chant confidential mantras, go on pilgrimage, and follow all the rules and regulations for spiritual life. However, one who accepts satsanga, which destroys all material attachments, can control me. How much can I say? Astanga Yoga can slightly satisfy me indirectly, but Sadhu Sangha controls me completely. This is such a beautiful verse. Huh?
Is it Uddhava Gita?
Yes, this is in Uddhav Gita. He's speaking to, Lord Krishna is speaking to Uddhav. Because Uddhav is a Jnani Bhakta. A Jnani Bhakta is someone who perceives the greatness of the Lord, as opposed to a Jnani is someone who is becoming liberated from this world, like has their sights set on moksha. That's a Jnani. But a Jnani Bhakta is someone who is aware with his knowledge of the supremacy of the Lord. Like Bhishma Dev is a Jnani Bhakta. Jad Bharat was also a Jnani Bhakta. They appreciate the greatness of the Lord. But their connection with the Lord, that sambandha, that loving connection, that is what the heart is craving. That is what the soul wants as the highest attainment, that Amala Prem Seva. Because we see previously most of the traditional methods to achieve the Lord was through severe austerities. We read about in Satya Yuga, for example, sitting in a ring of fire, submerging myself in ice cold rivers in the middle of winter. It's all these torturous, practically, austerities that would purify the consciousness, but the result of those austerities was not a madhurya, not a sweet manifestation of the Lord. The result of those austerities would have been Vaikuntha at best. And in Vaikuntha, it's practically a glorified, liberated condition. My Gurudev describes, who will cook for Krishna in Vaikuntha? In Vaikuntha, everyone thinks that Krishna is fully satisfied. They don't need to feed him. Everything is completely clean. Lakshmi Devi cleans everything. There's nothing to clean. There's nothing to do for Krishna. You can't dress Krishna. You can't do anything. Krishna is self-satisfied. Atmaram Aptakam. That's his condition in Vaikuntha. So in Vaikuntha, principally it's two rasas, Shantaras and Dasyaras. There's a little flavor of Shantaras there. But everything is Aishwarya. Everything is worshipping that Lord in awe and veneration. That is the mood of Vaikuntha. The intimacy is very less, practically not at all. You sing for Krishna. You chant the Vedic stavas and stutis for Krishna. This is what you do in Vaikuntha. This is how Gop Kumar has been described. Gop Kumar was very unhappy in Vaikuntha. He wanted to dance and sing and put his arm around the Lord, And all the residents of Vaikuntha said, no, no, no. You have to dress very soberly, take off this forest dress that you're wearing, and just sing nice mantras and hymns for Krishna's pleasure. So that is the mood of veneration, of Vaikuntha. And that was the principal destination of most of the practitioners prior to the advent of Mahaprabhu. Because when Krishna is on the planet, in that seventh Manvantara, in the Dwapara Yuga, 28th Dwapara Yuga, this was the first time that he'd advented in the day of Lord Brahma. So prior to Krishna manifesting, there was not even any description of the loving relationships between Krishna and the Lord. It wasn't even there. So then after Krishna, some Siddha Purushas understood something of the nature of Vrindavan, but very, 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 very few. But Mahaprabhu, he's brought this whole Braj conception to us. It's completely, it's so distinct from what has been the goal and focus prior to Mahaprabhu. This Raganuga Bhakti was never there before, to the extent that who spoke about Parakiya Ras, and without the nature of Parakiya Ras, then our understanding of Braja Prem and Brajadam is like zero. Without understanding the nature of the gopis' love for Krishna, the gopis had to break all social and dharmic boundaries in this world to connect with Krishna. Everything that this world creates as a boundary, they had their chastity, etc. They let it go. Their fear of the dark forest, running into the forest at night, their thoughts of their social standing in the society had to be given up, their reputation, etc. Everything was given up for the sake of Krishna. So this demonstration of love is the highest demonstration in existence. And this was manifested only when Krishna came on the planet 5,000 years ago. But nobody understood that really. Queen Kunti is described as being bewildered when she hears about Krishna being bound by Mother Yashoda. She can't understand, how could Mother Yashoda bind the Supreme Personality of Godhead? As long as you're thinking Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there's a gulf between you and the sweetness of exchange. Like the queens of Dwarka, their rasa, for example, described, it goes to the stage of anurag, which is a very high stage, but still there's this intimacy is lacking because they think that Krishna is my husband and I am his wife. There's some ownership claim here. There's some duty here, some responsibility here. And this type of relationship doesn't control Krishna. This is called Samanjasa Rati. But the Rati of the gopis, that is Samartha Rati, that controls Krishna. So that Rati is described only by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it's saying in this verse, all these different performances of devotion, they don't control Krishna. Penance, austerities, etc., renunciation, sannyas, yagya, chanting confidential mantras, going on pilgrimage, they can all support and supply sukriti to bring us to a Rasik Vaishnava. All of these activities can improve our chances to meet a Rasik Vaishnava. They'll give us sukriti. We need sukritis. You need pious credits to get in a position where you can meet a Rasik Vaishnava. A Rasik Vaishnava won't appear unless we're really ready for him. They will appear just like that if the sadhak is ready for that. They'll just come into our lives. Whether we don't have to go searching necessarily for that. They will automatically just be coming into our lives if we're ready for that, if the heart is softened and cultivated sufficiently. It is also stated in Hari Bhakti Sudadaya 8:51. Yasya yat sangati pumso manivat syat sa tad guna svakuladyache yatato diman sva yutanye eva samshrayat. Just as a jewel or crystal reflects the color of the object with which it is in contact to a person, so a person develops qualities according to the company he keeps. So if we keep the company of pure Rasik Vaishnavas, even one Rasik Vaishnava is sufficient to give us confirmation of the reality of Braja Prem. If you don't have that connection with that sadhu who has that Braja Prem, how can you possibly get it yourself? You can't. Actually, you can't. You can't get it by reading, by studying, by coming to the Dham, by all kinds of penances and austerities. You can't get it because it has to be gifted into the heart. It has to be infused by that person who has it. For example, we've spoken about getting Saki Bhav rather than Manjari Bhav. Who is the Saki that you're going to get that Bhav? You have to go to that person who has realized that Saki Bhav to experience or to wake up that Saki Bhav. But in this age, Mahaprabhu, he's come to give Manjari Bhav. Therefore, all of our Guru Varga, they are all, every single one of them, Manjaris, including Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. His Manjari name has been given.
What if someone is not attracted by Manjari Bhav, attracted by Vaikuntha Bhav or Sati
No
Bhav?
problem. He's asking the question, if you didn't hear, that if someone is not attracted to Manjari Bhav, what will be his condition? My Gurudev used to say to this, then he should go to the Ramanujas. Then he can join the Madhava sect. Then you can join different sects, and those sects are flourishing today, and you'll be more at home and peaceful in an environment like that. There's the verse, Swajatya Shnigdha Ashraya. This is the um, the um, the qualities to seek Swajatya in our association. Who is like-minded to you? Swajatya. Jatya means group or caste. So if you are attracted to Manjari Bhav, you will naturally meet those people, others who are also. And if you're attracted to Saki Bhav, you will meet those, you will look for those kinds of people. If you're attracted to Aishwarya Bhav, you will associate with those kinds of people. So Swajatya, then Shnigdha, where we feel affection is coming from that association, Shnigdha. And then Ashraya, we feel that they are senior. So we seek that association. So if you are inclined towards the Aishwarya Bhav, you will seek those affectionate people who you think are more senior in that mood. Whereas if you actually want to enter into the precepts that Mahaprabhu has given directly through Rupa Goswami, I mean, it's so clear in the writings of Rupa Goswami. It's so clear in the writings of Sanatana Goswami, of Jiva Goswami, of all our Guru Varga, especially Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj. It's so clear in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that this Manjari Bhav is what Mahaprabhu has come to distribute. This is what he's come to distribute. So if we're not attracted in that way, no problem. Then we should go where our attraction is comfortable for us and take shelter there. At the same time, if we have faith in Mahaprabhu, we should understand that perhaps because I am not familiar sufficiently with the nature, for example, of Manjari Bhav, then perhaps I should become more familiar with the nature of Manjari Bhav. And then I can make an educated choice rather than just a Mayic sort of choice from my own unpurified mind. You understand?
Yeah.
Therefore, by keeping association with pure sadhus, one can become a pure sadhu. Thus, the association of pure sadhus is the root cause of all good fortune. In the Shastras, the word nishanga means to live in solitude. This implies that we should only live in the association of bhaktas. Nishanga means to leave all other association and to take the association of bhaktas. Even unintentional association with saintly people brings good fortune for the jiva. Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes so beautifully. This is the nature of the jivas who are freed from Maya. This is how to become freed from Maya. This is all that he's discussing. Sango ya samsmritya heto astatu vihito diya sa eva sadyusho krito nishangatvaya kalpite. Shrimad Bhagavatam 3, 23, 55. So this is Kapila Dev speaking to Devahuti. The association of materialists is the cause of bondage in the material world, even though one may not know that this is so. If we are constantly rubbing shoulders with materialists, if we're in a workspace, for example, our natures is to create friendships with people. That's generally people's natures. So if you're working in a workspace and there's all materialists around you, you're naturally going to make friendships there. But a materialist doesn't even begin to see with the same vision this world. They put as prominent all the objects of this world are most important and worth our whole life striving and struggling for. This is the nature of the materialist, of using all their energy just to achieve a house, a family, a car, a bank balance, etc. And that's their focus entirely. And if you're with that sort of company, surely some of that mood will come in your heart and you'll get restless for material acquirements naturally. And conversely, if we're just with Vaishnavas who pay no heed to the material accomplishments or achievements of this world, then you will also become inspired to make some separation with this material energy more easily if that's constantly being reminded and you're living in a group, in a society like that. Most of the devotees are kind of like halfway between the two. They're in process of becoming detached from material energy, but they haven't quite got attached to the beauty and speciality of Krishna. So we need to find those who are attracted to Krishna's pastimes, to Vrindavan, and who want to tell us about the sweetness and speciality of Krishna in Vrindavan. That's the sort of association that most of the devotees are hungry for. That's what we need to inspire us to a higher state of consciousness, for sure. The association of materialists is a cause of bondage in the material world, even though one may not know that this is so. Yes, it's very subtle. Similarly, association with saintly people, even if it happens by chance or unknowingly, is called nishanga. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam 7:5-32, Naisham matis tavad urukraman griham sprisyati sprisyatya anarta pagamo yad arta mahi yasham pada rajo vishekam niskinshanam na vrinita yavat. This is Prahlad speaking. The lotus feet of, this is, I didn't say the quote, it's from 7:5-32. The lotus feet of Urkram, who is glorified for his uncommon activities, destroy all anarthas in the heart. However, those who are very materialistic cannot be attached to his lotus feet until they smear their bodies with the dust from the lotus feet of great souls who are absorbed in Bhagavat Prem and who are completely freed from material attachments. So this is the potency of Shastra, telling us to smear our bodies with the dust from the lotus feet of great souls. What does that mean? That means taking their instructions, their guidance, becoming Sharanagat to them. This is how these great souls are able to impart these gifts, when we can be submissive to these souls. And then, just like a child who is very submissive to the father is ready to give him all the gifts that he has if the son is completely submissive. But if the son is arrogantly thinking that he knows better, then the father cannot possibly give those gifts. So we have to learn how to associate with those sadhus when we meet them, also how to be um, how the heart can become hungry just for the gifts of those how to please those personalities. So on this day, Akshaya Tritiya, many people will go to visit all the various sadhus that they know and beg for their blessings. And we see how people, they come, they're very submissive, they offer fruits and so on. They are desiring the blessings. Without the blessings of saintly people, our lives are really, really inauspicious. My Gurudev, before he used to go to the Western countries, he would call all the local residents of Mathura, just the mothers and children and family members and so on, and request them all for their blessings before he went to the Western countries. He would ask them to, he said, he was always say, without the blessings of you all, I cannot be successful where I'm going. So to their capacity, they would have that mood of supporting my Gurudev like that. So that mood should always be there, to seek the blessings of those we consider our ashraya, senior to us. And Srimad Bhagavatam 10:48 states, Nahyam mayani tirtani na deva mrich chila mayaha te punantya uru kalena darshanad eva sadhava. One is purified by the holy places where rivers such as the Ganga flow, and by the stone and clay deities of Devatas only after tendering them, only after rendering them reverential service over a long period of time. However, when one has darshan of a Shuddha Bhakta, he is purified immediately. So this is very inspiring for the devotees to appreciate and to meditate on. This is why Srimad Bhagavatam 10:51-53 also states, Bhava Parvago Brahmato Yada Bhavaj Janasya Trihe Achutya Sat Samagramaha Sat Sangamo Yari Tadaiva Sad Gato Para Varesh Tvayi Jayate Mati. This is from, 51. O infallible Lord, the jiva has been wandering in this world of birth and death since time without beginning. When the time comes for him to leave this cycle of life and death, he associates with your Shuddha Bhaktas. From the moment that he achieves this association, his mind becomes firmly fixed on you, who are the sole and supreme shelter of the surrendered Bhaktas, the controller of all and the cause of all causes. So there's so many verses here that we've read today, most inspiring on this most auspicious day, to seek that higher association, specifically the Rasik Vaishnavas, who desire to carry the conditioned souls into the world of Brajadam, because this is the gift and focus that Mahaprabhu wanted us to pick up. This is only his gift. Nityananda Prabhu wanted to bring us to Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu is the only one who's actually giving us this directly. Why? Because Mahaprabhu has taken the interest and bhav of Srimati Radhika. That is who is the identity of Mahaprabhu is Krishna, but still he is in the mood completely of Sri Radhika. Sri Radhika is manifesting this dham for service to Krishna. Everything about Vrindavan Dham is only madhurya. It's only sweetness. It's only these higher states of relationship with sweet Krishna. All the bridges are only thinking, how can we please Krishna? How can we support Krishna in a mood of taking responsibility to support him, to feed him, to nourish him? They want to make Krishna happy. That's the whole mood of Braj. He is the focus, and how can we um, support and um, satisfy him, satisfy his desires, especially the gopis? Whereas in Dwarka, for example, it's the other way around. All the Dwarka Vasis are depending on Krishna for their happiness and etc. They're depending on him for their support. He is the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Paramatma, etc. Different conceptions they will be thinking, but they will be thinking he is the greatest person and be wanting his blessings. Whereas in Vrindavan, they all know that Krishna wants their blessings. Krishna wants their mercy, the mercy of Mother Yashoda, the mercy of Nanda Baba. Krishna carries Nanda Baba's shoes on his head. Krishna is hungry for the love of the Brijbasis. He's hungry for this. And this is what Vrindavan specifically demonstrates. And this is the rare, rare, rare gift that Mahaprabhu has come to give, that is only blossoming and being opened out right now. Previously, it was somewhat contained just in the Sanskrit language, but then Bhaktivinoda Thakur put it into the Bengali vernacular, etc., and gradually, and then other personalities have now translated into English, and it's all over the world. And it's just on our cell phones. We can pick up and read the Chaitanya Charitamrita anywhere. It's so available, these truths, for our contemplation. But we need to purify our existence simultaneously by hearing these regularly. Vikriditam Brajavatubi itam cha Vishnu. Shradan Vishnu, Shradan Vito Nushrunyad Artharvarenyam Ya. Bhaktim Param Bhagavati Pratilabhya. Karmam Hridrogam Asi Asab Acharet. That by hearing from these saintly persons about bhakti, then bhakti will arise in the heart, and this hridrogam, this disease of the heart, will go. That's the sequence. First you hear, and then the disease of lust, etc., will dissipate. But first we have to hear. It's not that I have to purify myself before I'm allowed to hear. I have to hear first. It's the hearing process. Vikriditam Brajavadubi itam cha Vishnu Shradan Vitu Nushunyat Artarvanimya Bhaktim Param Bhagavati Prati Labhyat Karamam Hridrogam Asava Pinoti Acharena Dira. Dira becomes sober by hearing. And my Gurudev has written extensively about this in the beautiful introduction to Venugit, that it's not by, first of all, trying to purify my existence and then thinking that now I'm qualified, now I can come and hear about Braj Katha. No, it's the hearing about Braj Katha which will purify the heart. That's the sequence. So again, we'll post the same essay that we did previously from Venugit, and we have it in 3 different formats. You can read it straight, or we have a in note form, a brief summary form of it. But this is such an important point, that it's not by my endeavor that I'm going to achieve Krishna. This is called Aroha Panta. Our path is Avaroha Panta, the descending process. First I hear about the sweet pastimes of Krishna. Okay, we've gone over. But I've only just begun to speak this particular topic, but we'll continue something tomorrow. But these are beautiful verses we went through today. Jai Vedama ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanande. So yesterday, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying very conclusively that the way to become liberated from Maya is to come in contact with the Shuddha Bhaktas. So here he's stressing greatly this sadhu sangha. So now we'll continue with this mood that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is opening out here. So halfway down page 389, or just at the beginning of 389, where Brajanath asks this question, is where we reached yesterday. I'll just refresh and read from the beginning of 389 what Babaji answered yesterday. Baba, since time without beginning, the jiva who is eternally bound by Maya has been moving in the universe, taking birth according to his karma, sometimes as a deva and sometimes in various animal species. From the time that he attains the association of saintly people, because of his past pious activities, Sukriti, he fixes his mind very strongly on Krishna, the controller of all. So due to his Sukriti. Now, Brajanath is going to ask about this. Brajanath, you have said that the association of Sudha Bhaktas is achieved by Sukriti. What is Sukriti? Is it karma or knowledge? Babaji, the Shastras say that there are two types of auspicious karma, Shubha karma. Shubha means auspicious, that are in accordance with Vedic injunctions. One causes the appearance of bhakti, while the other gives irrelevant, inferior results. For example, if you do charity, not to a Vaishnava or saintly person, you're going to accrue some material credits. And with those material credits, you'll experience some material happiness, which actually ultimately will bind you more to this material world. So it's not in our interest to perform materially um, motivated or materially directed good activities. At the same time, the devotee is naturally inclined towards goodness. So he will be doing those same activities, but within a mood of serving Krishna. Everything will be in his interest. But if I'm just performing charitable acts, like many times we see very wealthy people, they'll perform various charitable acts, giving blankets out in wintertime for the cold people, giving food distribution. So they're actually only doing it for their own um, uh, well, not for their own glorification, but for their own um, increasing their own financial situation. They're hoping to get this material punya to increase their already um, established wealth. That's why they're doing it. So this is not at all encouraged. One causes the appearance of bhakti, while the other gives irrelevant, inferior results. That's what I've just described. Performance of pious activities such as nitya and naimitic dharma, studying sankhya, and cultivating jnana all give irrelevant results. I'll read that again. Performance of pious activities such as nitya and naimitic karma, studying sankhya, and cultivating jnana all give irrelevant results. The only auspicious activities that give bhakti as an end result, bhakti pada sukriti, are associating with Shuddha bhaktas and with places, times, and things that bestow bhakti. The devotee should endeavor to spend his whole life in an atmosphere of having opportunities to serve the Supreme Lord and the Vaishnavas and the Holy Dham and the Granthas, etc., that I've just described, Mahaprasad, the holy name, the Murti. When enough Bhakti Pada Sukriti has been accumulated, it gives rise to Krishna Bhakti. The other types of Sukriti, however, is consumed after one enjoys its results. Yes, very clear. When you perform those punya activities, then you immediately get some result in the form of some pious credits. And once you consume those, then it's gone. It's finished. We can accrue pious credits to go to Swagaloka. But even there, you have to return back here. So all of these pious acts, if they're not under guidance of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, just they're concocted out of our minds, oh, this is good, this is good, this is good. It's not necessarily, the result will not necessarily be bhakti. All the pious deeds in the world, such as charity, only result in achieving the objects of sense gratification. Be very clear on this. I'll say it again. All the pious deeds in the world, such as charity, only result in achieving the objects of sense gratification. The sukriti of impersonal speculation results in impersonal liberation. Neither of these kinds of sukriti can give devotional service to Sri Bhagavan. So devotees have to be very clear on this, because devotees often have soft hearts and they want to assist and give people so many things. But if it's not in the direction of bhakti, if it's not under guidance, then it can be totally fruitless without any real benefit to the practitioner at all. Just giving charity doesn't reap proper results. At the same time, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was once asked, should we give money to beggars? And he said, what is the harm if you have a few coins? It's helpful to be in a mood of giving. It's helpful to be in a mood of munificence to the conditioned souls. You're not doing it to increase your bhakti. You're just performing some dharmic act, which is not condemned. At the same time, if we make a habit of it, distributing big amounts of wealth to poor people, that's going to entangle us in that person's karma. Also, if you give, say, 100 rupees to a street beggar and he goes and buys biddies and some alcohol or something, you're going to be implicated somehow in the karmic reaction for that. So, but if a few coins for some rice or something for his belly is not going to be so harmful. So we have to be balancing here.
So if one knows that a certain beggar is known for receiving donations and
Abusing them,
abusing it, if one knows about that,
then don't give him.
they just give him less. They
Give him,
5 rupee
yeah,
instead of 100.
yes, give him less, yes.
Yeah.
We have to understand the heart of this, the mood of this. Activities such as sadhu sangha and observing Ekadashi, Janmastami, Gaur Purnima all help to develop one's saintly qualities. These activities are what the devotees engage themselves in constantly. We follow Ekadashi, we endeavor to live in the holy dhams, visit the holy dhams, we celebrate Janmastami, Gaur Purnima, etc. Tulsi, Mahaprasad, Sri Mandir, holy places, and articles used by sadhus, sadhu vastu, are all auspicious. Touching them or obtaining their darshan are pious deeds that give rise to bhakti. Because I'm always wanting to associate with that current of bhakti and anything that is associated with bhakti, like worshipping Tulsi Devi, for example, honoring Mahaprasad. This is all associated with bhakti. So we have to know the distinction between material, pious acts and spiritually motivated pious acts. There's a huge difference. Prajanath, can a person obtain bhakti if he is tormented by material problems and take shelter of Sri Hari's lotus feet in full knowledge to become relieved of his problems? So this is a good question. I mean, most devotees come to devotional service because materially they're suffering, because materially they're not satisfied, or they want liberation, moksha. These two reasons. Babaji, the jiva, harassed by the afflictions of the goddess of illusion, may somehow understand through discriminating intelligence that worldly activities are simply troublesome, and that his only solace is Krishna's lotus feet and the feet of Shuddha Bhaktas. Knowing this, he takes shelter of his lotus feet. And the first step in this process of surrender is to accept the shelter of Shuddha Bhaktas. Again, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is really stressing this point. This is the principle, Bhakti Prada Sukriti, through which he obtains the lotus feet of Bhagavan. Whatever renunciation and wisdom he had originally were just a secondary means of attaining bhakti. Whatever credits we think we have in this material world are simply secondary. when we come in contact with the pure Vaishnavas. Thus, the association of bhaktas is the only way to attain bhakti. There is no other recourse. There is no other way. It's so clear. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's repeating it again and again. I can remember personally when I first came to meet the devotees practically for the first time, I sat in a temple with one particular individual in front of the deities, and he was inquiring about my past, etc. And I began to more or less like show off to him what I had done in my life. I had done this traveling and been here and been there. And he just looked at me and said, I did all that in my last life, and completely shut me up. And then I was able to sit quietly and for the next 2 hours just listen to him speaking something completely that I'd never even heard of. So this is the process. We come out of this material, bewildering world. And if we have the fortune to meet a sadhu or meet a devotee who is enlightened to some degree, even to some degree, then he's able to purify our past attachments and then develop the greed for our future prospects of becoming a servant of that Supreme Lord. So this is the simple process. Brajanath, if karma, gyan, renunciation, and discrimination are secondary ways of achieving bhakti, what is the objection to calling them bhakti pada sukriti? So karma, gyan, renunciation, discrimination can be considered secondary. So he's asking, why can't these also be called in the same category as bhakti pada sukriti? Babaji is strongly responding. There is a strong objection. They bind one to inferior temporary results. You will get the results of your karma. You will get the results of your renunciation. This will tighten the shackles for our material sojourn here in this world. If we're doing just pious activities, not under guidance, not fully focused on Krishna. The performance of karma has no permanent result, but it binds the jivas to the objects of sense gratification. One of the objects of sense gratification is being happy. If I'm happy distributing, for example, charitable acts and giving to poor people and so on. If I'm, it's like the Christian idea. They go to deprived countries like Africa or something, and they think they are doing God's work by helping the poor people. They don't have an appreciation that God Himself can help these people, that they're suffering in that poor condition due to their karma. This is why they're in that condition. If a man, for example, is born in a desert without water, that's indicative of his previous life. Yam yam vapi smarambhavam tyajati antikalevaram. Whatever you think about at the time of death, that will be the body that you will inhabit in your next birth. So if someone is born into a very low caste, deprived family, that's a direct result of his previous activities. But that doesn't limit him to coming to devotional service. But if I'm just feeling sorry for his material condition and trying to give him money and benefit like that, that's not going to increase my bhakti pada sukriti. Actually, the opposite. It'll increase some punya, some karmic credits will come, and those will bind me because there's shubha karma. Shubha karma is the good results of karma that will bind. It's like the gopis, for example. It's described they worshipped Katyani, and it's described that they had to burn up. They had some Shubha karma left, which actually had to be incinerated. Their good credits had to be also burnt. So those are not conducive for bhakti. Understand it very clearly. There's a huge distinction between charitable acts in this world and bhakti pada sukriti. This is what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is emphasizing here. Renunciation and empirical knowledge can only lead the jiva as far as knowledge of Brahm. And if we go to that place of Brahm, this means like moksha. And this conception of an impersonal supreme principle prevents him from attaining Bhagavan's lotus feet. If you're running around the planet doing so many good deeds for good people, but you're not really focusing on the ultimate goal of direct service to Krishna, it's going to bind us in the material world rather than liberate us. Consequently, these cannot be called bhakti pada sukriti. It is true that they sometimes take one to bhakti, but that is not the usual course of events. Sadhu Sangha, on the other hand, definitely does not award any secondary benefit, but forcibly brings the jiva towards prem. And we remember, of course, the brilliant example in the very beginning of this Jivadharma in the first chapter, where Sannyasi Thakur, he sees that Vaishnava dancing, and that is his association. He sees from that, he sees the bliss of that Vaishnava and realizes that he wants to follow this path. So this is association. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is showing this association in the first chapter. Sannyasi Thakur, he starts to search for the Vaishnavas after seeing that one ecstatic Vaishnava dancing. And then eventually his search leads him to Godrundu, and he meets Prendas, etc. It is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam 3:25-25. Satam prasangam mama vira samvido bhavanti hritkana rasanaya katha tajnosavar sab apavarago vartmani shraddha rati bhakti anukramishyati. In the association of Shuddha Bhaktas, this is spoken by Kapila Dev to his mother Devahuti. In association of Shuddha Bhaktas, the recitation and discussion of my glorious activities and pastimes are pleasing to both the heart and the ears. By cultivating knowledge in this way, one becomes established on the path of liberation and progressively attains Shraddha, then Bhav, and finally Prema Bhakti. This is the path. This Shraddha, Rati, Bhakti, Anukramishyati. This is the progression. Shraddha first, then Bhav, and finally Prema Bhakti. Brajanath, I understand that Sadhu Sangha is the only Sukriti that gives rise to Bhakti. One has to listen to Harikatha from the mouths of sadhus, and thereafter one obtains Bhakti. Is this the proper sequence to progress in Bhakti? Babaji, I will explain the proper way of progressing in Bhakti. Listen attentively. Only by good fortune does the jiva who is wandering throughout the universe achieve the sukriti that gives rise to bhakti. One of the many limbs of pure bhakti may touch a jiva's life. For example, he may fast on Ekadashi, touch or visit the holy places of Bhagavan's pastimes, serve a guest who happens to be a Shuddha Bhakta, or have the chance to hear Hari Nam or Hari Katha from the lotus mouth of an Akinchana Bhakta. If someone desires material benefits or impersonal liberation from such activities, the resultant sukriti does not lead to devotional service. If someone tries to take advantage of his apparent good karma in a material sense, acquire more money, so many different desires fulfilled, it's not going to lead to bhakti. However, if an innocent person performs any of these activities, either unknowingly or out of habit, agata sukriti is called, unknowingly, without desiring material sense gratification or impersonal liberation, these activities lead to the accumulation of bhakti pada sukriti. So it's very rare that this bhakti pada sukriti will be ignited in the heart of the jiva. After accumulating such sukriti for many births, it becomes concentrated enough to give faith in pure bhakti. And when faith in bhakti is undivided, one develops a desire to associate with Shuddha Bhaktas. So we see that all the different devotees that we know, whatever level they're on, are just amazing personalities because they have actually come to this path of bhakti. whether they can follow it carefully or not carefully. They have still, in their previous births, etc., acquired sufficient Sukriti to come to this path. So there are millions of, we can say, younger devotees who have come into this path, and older devotees, of course. But I'm just talking about the general inflow of devotees. This is indicative of many lifetimes of acquiring this Bhakti Pada Sukriti. So all these individuals who come to devotional service, especially who come to the camp of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they are all exceptional personalities and should never be criticized or condemned or judged. There's no need for any of that. They're all loved by the Lord and they're all exceptional because they've come through many births, and now with their discriminating intelligence, they've taken shelter of the devotees. This is to be celebrated and supported in every single instance, not condemned. Very often we spend a lot of effort distributing books, and then someone comes, and then we begin to cultivate them. Then actually they take to devotional service, and then they start performing devotional service. And then sometimes the devotees begin to criticize them. This is greatly unfortunate that we should see through this lens of judgmental behavior. So we always want to improve our devotion, and sometimes by that, those judgments, etc., this is helping the devotee to improve, perhaps. But if it's envious judgment, if it's envious condemnation, then it's very, very sinful and should be condemned, which is the first offense in the chanting of the holy name, to blaspheme the devotees of the Lord who have dedicated their lives for following this path. It's the first offense to the holy name. So we must be very cautious and not mess up our opportunity to actually progress in devotional service by committing offenses to anybody. One time, Srila Gaura Govinda Maharaj was asked, what happens if someone is like very new and doing, no, he was talking about, what about the general low sinful people of the world, the conditioned souls? Should we condemn them or criticize them? And he responded, Jivera Surup Hoy Krishnera Nityadas. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says the same thing. Everyone is a Vaishnava. Some know it and some don't know it. Some recognize their Vaishnavata, their nature as a Vaishnava, and act as Vaishnavas, and others don't recognize it. So neither should be condemned. This is most unhealthy to judge and condemn anybody. And if we get in the habit of this whole material world that we live in, it's described as crackling with envy. Everyone is envious of another. They all want a bigger house than the person next door. They all want a bigger car, this and this, so many things that they're envious of in the material world. So this envy is all pervasive. And if the devotees get contaminated by this all pervasive judgmental character, nature, qualities, then he's submitting to the Mayic influence, without a doubt. There's no need for it. We hear the beautiful pastime of Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, and he is renowned for never uttering a single word or even hearing a word of criticism about the devotees. So we are following this path.
So in regards to non-devotees, and we know the truth that they display demoniac activities and
They're ignorant.
ignorant.
It's
That's
like an
not
animal.
devotees.
An animal is ignorant. We don't beat an animal because he's ignorant. If we can
But we
enlighten them,
criticize them.
there's no need to criticize them. We just need to enlighten them. The
Yeah.
criticism won't make any sense.
For example, Dan Andrews. We know,
Yeah. Different people.
but we
Better
we
not to criticize
have
anybody.
the habit we criticize him.
But
But
if
it's
we,
still-
but understand the real dynamic. If we criticize anybody, it's like we're throwing water on an electric circuit. That water will be connected with the person who's throwing it. and the electric current and shock will come back to the person who's criticizing. You understand?
That's the truth.
There is no truth in criticizing. There's no purpose to criticizing. There's no objective to criticizing unless someone is asking for our opinions. There's no profit. What benefit is it to criticize someone who is very sinful? How is it going to increase your bhakti? It's only going to bring your mind down because you're condemning someone. There's no need for it. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, he said beautifully, he said, we point the finger at someone and there's three fingers pointing back at us. Just condemn ourselves. Look for the fault within ourselves, and we can probably find millions of them. Better to look in that direction than to spend our time even, condemning others. Other people will condemn someone who is very sinful. We don't have to be involved. Better we stay separate. This is the principle to follow. This is the principle that we hope to be strong enough to hold on to. We all, I think, are prone to falling down in this area. We do condemn each other, but we should know what is the directive from Scripture. It doesn't help us. It doesn't help up. And we take examples from the great saints in our line who would not condemn anybody for any reason except to try and encourage their bhakti as much as possible, like an animal. If someone is very sinful, then what is the point to criticize them?
That Andrews, we criticize him, and we cannot help him.
So just leave it. So leave it. So leave it.
Yeah.
So don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Leave it. It gets boring. After accumulating such sukriti for many births, it becomes concentrated enough to give faith in pure bhakti. And when faith in bhakti is undivided, one develops a desire to associate with Shuddha Bhaktas. By association, one gradually becomes engaged in performing sadhan and bhajan, and this leads to the removal of anarthas in proportion to the purity of chanting. When anarthas are removed, the previous faith is purified further to become nishta, firm faith. He's going through the 7-8 stages to prem here. So nishta, firm faith. This firm faith is also purified to become ruchi, spiritual taste. And by the Sundarya beauty of bhakti, this ruchi is strengthened and takes the form of asakti, transcendental attachment. Transcendental attachment matures into rati or bhav. When rati combines with the appropriate ingredients, it becomes rasa. This is the step-by-step progression in the development of Krishna Prem. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur Babaji is opening this out in a very systematic way here to Brajanath. The principal idea is that when people with sufficient sukriti have darshan of Shuddha Bhaktas, they develop an inclination to proceed on the path of bhakti. One associates with a Shuddha Bhakta by chance, and this leads to initial shraddha, whereupon he gets the association of the Bhaktas a second time. The result of the first association is shraddha, which can also be termed surrender, sharanagati. The initial sadhu sangha is brought about by contact with holy places, auspicious times, and paraphernalia, and recipients of Sri Hari's grace, all of which are beloved by him. So these objects that are related to Sri Hari, if we come in contact with these objects, then this is going to also give us this bhakti pada sukriti, which is the topic we're talking about. These lead to faith in his shelter. The symptoms of the development of such faith are described in Bhagavad Gita 1866. Sarva dharma parityaja mam ekam sharanam braja aham tam svave papabhyo mokshayishyami ma suchaha. Just give up all these material dharmas and surrender unto me. Here the words sarva dharma imply worldly duties, smarta dharma, Astanga Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, Gyan, and renunciation. the jiva can never achieve his ultimate spiritual goal by practicing all these dharmas, which is why the instruction here is to give them up. Sri Krishna says, my form of pure condensed Satchit Ananda, appearing as Vrajavilas, the performer of wonderful pastimes in Braj, is the only shelter for the jivas. One who understands this and gives up all desire for bhakti, for bhukti, gives up all desire for bhukti, material sense enjoyment, and mukti, impersonal liberation, and with undivided attention takes shelter of me. This is known as Pravritti Rupa Shraddha, the exclusive tendency to engage in Krishna's service. When such faith dawns in the jiva's heart, with tears in his eyes, he resolves to become a follower of a Vaishnava sadhu. The Vaishnava of whom he takes shelter at that point is the Guru. So this is the process. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has just taken us through this process in the last couple of pages here, describing what is Bhakti Pada Sukriti, how to attain that. Brajanath, how many types of anarthas does a jiva have? Babaji, there are 4 types of anarthas. 1. Swarup Brahm, being in illusion about one's spiritual identity. 2. Asat Trishna, thirst for temporary material enjoyment. 3. Aparad, offenses. 4. Hriday Dubalya, weakness of the heart. Rastamanjari, she will put a document with these very clearly written so that we can refresh regularly these 4. These are like the potholes that we have to navigate around. Once we know the dangers, then we can circumvent them, we can avoid them. The jiva's first anartha, namely Swarup Brahm, occurs when he forgets the understanding that I, the pure spiritual spark, am Krishna's servant. We've said this many times. To appreciate, we were saying yesterday about the Virat Rupa. The Virat Rupa is an opportunity to realize my insignificance in comparison to Krishna's completeness, and is carried far away from his original spiritual position. When the jiva considers that he and his dead material possessions are I and mine, he develops 3 types of asat trishna. These are the desires for a son, for wealth, and for celestial pleasures. There are 10 types of aparad, which I will discuss later. The jiva is grief-stricken because of Hriday Dubalya. These 4 types of anarthas are the Naishkika Phal, the fruit of Nishag, or the acquired nature of the jiva, who has been caught by ignorance, and they are removed gradually by cultivating Krishna consciousness in the association of Shuddha Bhaktas. Remember this word Nishag we discussed in the very beginning, this acquired nature, and the example was given of ice, very beautiful graphic example, that the ice acquires, the ice's swabhav, pure nature, is liquid, but when it comes in contact with a freezing place, it changes its constitution and becomes rock hard, ice. And if you ask that piece of ice what is its constitution, he will say, I am hard. But actually, he's not hard. He's in illusion. His real identity is to be liquid. And once a warm current comes and that rock of ice goes back into its liquid form, again he comes back to his form. So that warm current of Krishna consciousness will melt the conditioned idea that I am this material body, and will reawaken our pure spiritual identity, will reawaken our pure spiritual consciousness that I am soul beyond the gross and subtle bodies. The 4-fold path of yoga consists of withdrawal from sense objects, pratyahara, self-control, yama, following various rules and regulations, niyama, and renunciation, vairagya. This process is not the proper means to free oneself from material anxiety, for it is difficult to attain, it is difficult to attain perfection, and there is always a strong risk of falling down. The only way to become free from all anxiety, because this was the question that Brajanath asked at the very beginning here, the only way to become free from all anxiety is to cultivate pure Krishna consciousness in the association of Shuddha Bhaktas. It's not by separately trying to perform vairagya or self-control or pratyahara, etc. And this is the heart of the essay that we sent on our WhatsApp yesterday from Venu Geet, where there's the misconception that I have to become purified first before I can hear these beautiful topics about Krishna in Vrindavan. I'm not qualified. I'm not qualified. I don't have the adhikar. I don't, if I keep saying I don't have the adhikar, then I'm thinking I have to myself manifest the adhikar. Then I go off and perform some renunciation, some austerity, imagining that I'm actually working towards getting the adhikar to hear Krishna's pastimes. But my Gurudev explaining very clearly in that essay, it's a very important essay, that first we hear about Krishna. First we hear about the beautiful Vrindavan pastimes. And the hearing of that is sufficient to purify the darkness of these anarthas. But unless we have the goal first, then how, which is Braja Prem, why should we be inspired to practice it? Understand this carefully. I hope everyone will read that Venogit essay that's on our WhatsApp thread there. It's very, very important. Thus, the jiva is freed from Maya's stranglehold, and his constitutional position is revealed to the extent that anarthas have been removed from his heart. So, this is the process to remove these. First, we have to know about the anarthas, but it's not that we should focus on the anarthas. I've said previously, one time I asked my Gurudev, we were walking on a morning walk and the sun was just rising, I can remember very clearly. And one devotee, he said to him, should we think of our anarthas while we're chanting? Should we be contemplating my deficiencies while I'm chanting? And my Gurudev was very um, energetic. He jumped. He said, never. If you think of anarthas while you're chanting, more anarthas will come to you. You'll just go into a dark abyss of your previous births, which are unlimited, and the amounts of darkness there are just useless to contemplate. What is the value in contemplating the value is in contemplating Krishna's beauty and sweetness and the Vrindavan pastimes. And it's like a ghost. If someone is haunted by a ghost, what is the solution for that? First of all, he has to know that he's haunted by a ghost. That's the first solution. And then the second way to actually get rid of the ghost is completely to ignore him. Completely to ignore him. Don't listen to anything the ghost is saying. You know the ghost is there. You know a ghost is a very sad person. Ghosts are real. You see so many people haunted today because, suicides and things like that. And the ghosts are just there without bodies, and they will inhabit another body to get some type of pleasure. So the ghost will inhabit the body. But if that person just completely ignores the ghost, what happens? The ghost will go away very quickly.
So any type of material desire, it's like a ghost.
You can say like that. Yeah. Yeah. Rajanath, can people with no trace of anarthas be termed liberated people? Babaji, please consider the following shlokas. Rajobhir sama sankyatya parvare paratibhya iha janta va tesham ye kechan chante shreya vai manu jadaya prayo mamushshavas tesham kechanaiva divyotama mumukshunam sahasreshu kishchin muchayata siddhyati muktanandam api siddhanam narayanam parayha sudurlabha prashantama kochish api mahamune. From Srimad Bhagavatam 6:14, 3 to 5. Hey Bhagavan, There are as many jivas in this material world as there are grains of sand. Amazing. How many grains of sand are there on a beach? Unlimited. And there are as many jivas as there are grains of sand. Only a few of these are human beings, amongst whom only a few direct their efforts in search of a higher goal. Of those who are endeavoring for a higher goal, only a few rare individuals seek liberation from this world. And out of thousands of such people, hardly one is actually able to achieve siddha, perfection, or mukti, liberation. Out of millions of perfected, liberated souls, it is difficult to find a single, peaceful, great soul who is fully dedicated to the seva of Sri Narayan. Therefore, Narayan's bhaktas are very rare. So, this is like I said, not to criticize any person who comes to this path very, very carefully. This will cripple our bhakti lata bij. These weeds of criticism will strangle us. A person free from all anarthas is known as a Shuddha Bhakta. Such bhaktas are very rare indeed. Even among millions of muktas, one can hardly find a single bhakta of Sri Krishna. Therefore, no association in this world is more rare than the association of Krishna's bhaktas. Of course, we know there are degrees. There's Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttam. And those degrees were mentioned in the 8th chapter, and we discussed that at length in that area. But none of these stages should be criticized. This will strangle our bhakti. Brajanath, does the word Vaishnava imply a bhakta who has renounced family life? Okay, so Brajanath is thinking about this. We know the pastime here, that his family is pressuring him to get married, so he's asking this question. Babaji, a Shuddha Bhakta is a Vaishnava, whether he is a Grihastha household or a sannyasi renunciant, a Brahmana or a Chandala, a dog eater, rich or poor. A devotee is a Krishna Bhakta to the degree that he has Shuddha Krishna Bhakti, pure devotion for Krishna. Very clear. A Bhakta is someone who has pure devotion for Krishna, regardless of their caste, etc. Brajanath, you have already said that there are 5 types of jivas in Maya's stronghold, and you have also said that bhaktas performing sadhan bhakti and bhav bhakti are under Maya's control. At what stage are bhaktas Maya mukta? Are bhaktas Maya mukta, liberated from Maya? So we'll stop here and we'll conclude this on Monday. We'll finish this chapter on Monday. So very beautiful questions. Principally, this Bhakti Pada Sukriti. How to attain Bhakti Pada Sukriti is by associating with Vaishnavas and Sadhus and objects that are used in Krishna's worship, and days like Ekadashi, Janmastami, associating with the holy dhams, coming under the guidance of higher devotees, Shuddha Bhakti, this mood of Sharanagat. I've said before many times this verse. What's that? Swajatya. Swajatya means we look for the association of those similar-minded souls. They want, for example, Manjari Bhav. These are similar devotees. Swajatya, same caste. And Snigdha, they are affectionate. And Ashraya, we consider them more senior. This is the best association we can. Senior. Ashraya. Swajatya, Snigdha. Snigdha means affectionate. 3 qualities of association. Swajatya means the same group, the same mood. Yes, he wants Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's gifts. He's hungry for Braja Prem. This is the same caste, so to speak. And then those devotees who are affectionate towards us. Not everyone is going to be affectionate towards us. Why should they be? Why should I be affectionate towards all the devotees to the same degree? Some devotees, there will be an instant sort of connection, and others there won't. That's nature. And so those that we feel affectionate for, Snigdha, and those that we feel are senior. This is the best type of association that Rupa Goswami says. Jai Vedama ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Okay, so now we come to our chapter 17, and I think we'll probably conclude it today. So the last couple of days, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has been emphasizing sadhu sangha, that without this connection to Rasik Vaishnavas, then the lights aren't going to go on, so to speak. We're not going to see we're not going to experience the reality of the goal. When you meet a realized soul, he's sitting within that consciousness. So if you associate with him, you will also get an impression of the atmosphere of that consciousness. It will touch us. That is more powerful than anything else. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying it's more powerful than bathing in the Ganga, bathing in the Jamuna, etc. All these different opportunities we have for purification. But the highest purification is when we're able to sit in that amazing atmosphere of the Shuddha Bhakta, of the pure Rasik Vaishnava. Their words, when they speak, it's Shabda Brahman. It can penetrate to the deepest core of the hearts. So this is the goal that sadhaks are praying for, to be in the association of higher conscious devotees, always. Even if we consider ourselves somewhat mature in our devotional practices, still it's never enough. Even the Mahabhagavats will be seeking devotees of other higher associates. Always this association is what is going to nurture the prema of the heart, the natural prema of the heart. So on page 395, I'll just read from the top of 395 again, and we can recap something. So Brajanath, does the word Vaishnava imply a bhakta who has renounced family life? Babaji, a Shuddha Bhakta is a Vaishnava whether he is a Grihasta, household, or a sannyasi, renunciant, a Brahmana or a Chandala, dog eater, rich or poor. A devotee is a Krishna Bhakta to the degree that he has Shuddha Krishna Bhakti, pure devotion for Krishna. This is the only consideration, not about seniority or anything of that nature, or caste and birth, etc. Simply what is the degree of his bhakti, and that can be in anybody. We can find all across different examples, from the lowest to the topmost. Mahaprabhu, he associated with Ramananda Rai. He was not from a high caste, he was from a Kayashta class, a lower class. And he associated with Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was from a Muslim family. And Rupa and Sanatan, they had also associated a lot with the Muslims. They considered themselves ineligible to go into the Jagannath temple. So Mahaprabhu set the precedent. Of course, he had many Brahmin disciples also, but there were many of his disciples who were not Brahmins. Where are we? Brajanath, you have already said that there are 5 types of jiva in Maya's stronghold. And you have also said that bhaktas performing sadhan bhakti and bhav bhakti are under Maya's control. At what stage are bhaktas Maya mukta, liberated from Maya? So if we look back onto page 370, you can see at the bottom of 370 these 5 kinds of jivas, because it's going to be mentioned again in a minute, these 5 kind of jivas, whose consciousness, so the Achadita Chaitana, the Sankuchita Chaitana, the Mukulita Chaitana, Vikashita Chaitana, and Purna Vikashita Chaitana. This is all described in the 16th chapter on page 370. So we can always just refresh that, make an index of that, 370. These 5 types of consciousness. It's very important to appreciate the jivas are, all jivas fall into these 5 categories of consciousness. Those of trees, those of animals, those of lower human beings, those of advanced human beings, those of enlightened human beings. 5. Babaji. One is freed from the clutches of Maya from the very beginning of his devotional service. But Vastu Gata Mukti, or complete liberation from the 2 material bodies, gross and subtle, we discussed this at the end of the 16th chapter in great detail, the gross and the subtle bodies, the different elements, etc., is only obtained when one reaches the stage of full maturity in bhakti sadhan. So this is the path. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is chalking out the path. Before this, a person is liberated to the extent that he is Swarup Gata, aware of his constitutional position. What is our constitutional position? Jivara Swarup Hoy Krishnera Nityadas. Krishnera Tatasta Shakti Veda Veda Prakash. This is our position. We've said all the way through. The jiva is very, 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 very tiny, insignificant. But Krishna is the complete, Purna, Vibhu, Chit. And we simply have to begin more deeply to appreciate that. And I said in reference how Shukadev, in the first 2, second and third cantos, describes just simply the Virat Rupa. So this Virat Rupa, it instills in us the minuteness of the jiva compared to Krishna. So it's very helpful. The jiva achieves Vastu Gata Maya Mukti, complete freedom from Maya, only when he is completely disassociated from the gross and subtle bodies. That generally means leaving the body. Vastu Siddhi means like you left the body forever, means you die. Swarup Siddhi means you can realize the perfect nature of your soul within the body. Swarup Siddhi. You can realize your spiritual identity. Swarup Siddhi. But Vastu Siddhi is when you leave this material body altogether. You discard it. The stage of Bhav Bhakti, where am I? Complete freedom from. Only when he is completely dissociated. The stage of Bhav Bhakti dawns in the jiva's heart as a result of practicing sadhan bhakti. We've said many times this verse, Kleshagni Shubhada, Moksha Lokhatakrit, that Rupa Goswami is writing this. In our sadhan, we get freed from these kleshas, these 5 suffering, or these sufferings, kleshas of the material body. Klesh Agni, they're incinerated, Agni, fire. And then Shubhada, this is very auspicious for the jiva. This is in his sadhan stage. But the sadhan has to be focused on Bhav Bhakti. If the sadhan is not focused on Bhav Bhakti, if we're just doing sadhan bhakti, then it's described by the acharyas, your sadhan is without any value. It's actually 0 because it's just spinning around in the material domain. It's not actually focusing on transcendence. Our sadhan has to be focused on Bhav Bhakti. And then Bhav Bhakti, the qualities are described. Moksha, liberation, Lokhutakrit. I look down totally with utter disdain on moksha. Moksha is not my goal, not my highest prospect at all. Because the next stage is prem. Sri Krishna Akashani Chasa, or Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma. This purity of the heart entirely. And this Sri Krishna Akashani Chasa has the potency to attract Krishna. Krishna will be attracted by that prem. That's the 3rd stage. So when the jiva is firmly established in Bhav Bhakti, he gives up his gross body, and after that he gives up the subtle body and becomes established in his pure spiritual body, Chit Sarir. So the realized soul in this world is capable of giving up all attachment to his material body. It doesn't mean that necessarily he leaves his body, just like we see Raghunath Das Goswami. He was so detached from this material world from the very beginning of his life when he met Haridas Thakur first on when he was in his father's place, Hiranya Majumdar, or Govardhan Majumdar. And then he was practicing vigorous renunciation from the very moment that he went to Jagannath Puri. And then after that, when he came to Vrindavan, he was in Vrindavan for 40 years. He was 14 years in Jagannath Puri. And he was constantly demonstrating to the world this total disdain for anything to enjoy the senses in the material world. He would just take 1 cup of buttermilk per day, no sleeping, perhaps 20 minutes a day. Perhaps someone might be able to perform some of these austerities for a week or 2 or 3, but are they able to sustain it for 40 years? And are they able to stay awake? They able to stay awake because of their complete immersion in the sweet qualities, pastimes, attributes of the Lord, infused by the holy name of the Lord, and their service to Sri Radhika. So this is why this personality of Raghunath Das was able to be totally detached from his material body. Because actually it's described in Vilap Kusumanjali when he enters into, it's called Antar Desh. Antar Desh is when he goes into that complete transcendental state and he doesn't even know that he's Raghunath Das anymore. That's just an identity that's long gone. He's forgotten about it. He's now Tulsi Manjari, fully. And then he comes back when that mercy breaks and he has to come back into his body. And then again, he's Raghunath Das. But this is the stage that one can reach when he's completely, utterly detached from his material body and the material senses. So we're on a journey. We're starting this. We're beginning to develop detachment from this world, knowing that at the time of death, that I won't even look back on this body. Just like right now, how much do we remember our previous birth? Completely forgotten. Totally forgotten. Yeah, even yesterday, we don't even know what's going on. So, even to that degree. But what to speak of our previous birth? So, what attachment do we have to our previous birth now? Zero, because we're in this. And how much attachment have we built while we're in this body? All useless. Because at the time of death, it will just vanish. Exactly like if on a computer, you can go Control, Alt, Delete, and the whole thing cancels. Nothing is there. Nothing is there except for the sanskars, the impressions that have manifested in your subtle body of these holy experiences. They will carry on into the next birth. But everything else is just completely zero. So why should we spend any extra endeavor cultivating for anything of this world? Because most of us spend so much of our time trying to make a comfortable situation in this world, one way or another. And it's all just useless. When the jiva is firmly established in Bhava Bhakti, he gives up his gross body, and after that he gives up the subtle body and becomes established in his pure spiritual body, Chit Sarira. Consequently, the jiva is not fully free from Maya's control even in the beginning stage of Bhav Bhakti, because a trace of the conditioning of Maya always remains as long as the jiva is performing sadhana bhakti, as long as the jiva is in the consciousness of his bodily identity, that's the gross body, but even the subtle identity. The authorities in our line have carefully considered sadhana bhakti and bhav bhakti, and have included bhaktas practicing both these stages amongst the 5 stages of conditioned souls. The 5 stages of conditioned souls is what we've already discussed. Acharita Chaitana, Sankulita Chaitana, Mukulita Chaitana, Vikashita Chaitana, Purna Vikashita Chaitana. These are the 5 stages of conditioned souls. The materialist and the impersonalist are definitely included amongst the 5 categories of conditioned souls. So that's very interesting. The materialists and the impersonalists are definitely included in these 5 categories of conditioned souls. So these categories include those. The only path of deliverance from the clutches of Maya is bhakti for Sri Hari. The jiva has been put under Maya's control because he is offensive, and the root of all offense is forgetting that I am Krishna's servant. We've said this so many times, repeatedly. Jivara Sarup Hoy. We are Krishna's servant. The offenses can only be eradicated if one has Krishna's mercy. Only then can one be freed from Maya's control. The impersonalists believe that one can gain liberation from Maya by cultivating knowledge, and this belief has no basis. There is no possibility of becoming free from Maya without his mercy. It's Krishna's Maya. This Maya Shakti is manifesting from Swarup Shakti for the purification of the jiva. And it's only by Krishna's mercy that Maya Shakti will release its hold on the jiva. When Krishna, when Sri Radhika, when the Vaishnavas perceive that that person has no more intention of gaining anything from this world, that's the first aspect. But the second is more important, that he's totally attached to that world. So it's detachment and attachment. Anartha nivritti and artha pravritti. Artha pravritti means the attraction to the spiritual world. But this belief has no basis. There is no possibility of becoming free from Maya without his mercy. This is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam 10, 2, 32, and 33. Ye nye aravindaksha vimukta maninas tvaya asta bhavad avishuddha buddhaya aruya krichrena param bhadam tata patyanti ado nadrita yusmad angraya. O lotus-eyed Lord, those who proudly think they are liberated, but do not render devotional service unto you, certainly have impure intelligence. Although they perform severe austerities and penances and rise up to the spiritual position of impersonal realization of Brahm, they fall down again because they have no respect for devotional service to your lotus feet. The only purpose to our existence is to render service to Krishna. This is the only reason why we have manifested from this Swarup Shakti, is to bring Krishna pleasure. There is no other purpose. But we are so proud, we are so puffed up that we think this is our world and we have a right to so many enjoyments in this world separate from Krishna. This pride is a difficult anartha to actually overcome. But with the association of devotees and a healthy sadhana and the mercy of the Lord, then gradually, this all-pervasive pride can start to be dissolved. But it takes time. It doesn't just happen overnight. But we must sight the enemy. If we're able to sight the enemy, then surely we're able to make some purification of the enemy. Tata ne te madhava tavaka kvachid rashyanti mrigatvai bada surida tvaya abhigutta vichitranti nirbhaya vina yak anakapa murdashu prabho. O Madhav, your dearmost bhaktas, who have true love for your lotus feet, are not like those proud jnanis, for they never fall down from the path of devotional service. Since you protect them, they move about fearlessly, stepping on the very heads of those who obstruct their path, so that no obstacle can check their progress. This is a Mahabhagavat. This is a pure devotee. There is no obstacle in the path of a Mahabhagavat, because Krishna, his only purpose for his existence is to please Krishna. So Krishna, through the potency of Yogamaya, will just arrange his path to be smooth as silk, even in this material world. It's called Kleshagni Shubhada. Shubhada means auspiciousness. When those material afflictions go down due to our sadhan, then all auspiciousness will come in our lives. Then this Mokshalok Hadrit, Sudulaba. Sudulaba means very, very rare. So this is a very rare condition. Rajanath, how many different types of jivas are liberated from Maya? Babaji, two kinds of jivas are freed from Maya's control. Nitya Mukta, the jivas who were never under Maya's control. We discussed those in the 16th chapter, those in Goloka Vrindavan and those in Vaikuntha. And Bada Mukta, those who were once under Maya's control but are now free. The Nitya Mukts are two. Be very clear on this. The Nitya Mukta jivas are divided again into two categories. Aishwarya Gata, those who are attracted by Bhagavan's feature of opulence and majesty, and Madhurya Gata, those who are attracted to his feature of sweetness. Those jivas who are attracted by Krishna's Aishwarya are personal associates of Sri Narayan, the master of Vaikuntha. They are particles of spiritual effulgence emanating from Sri Mul Sankashan, who resides in Vaikuntha. Those who are attracted by Bhagavan's Madhurya are personal associates of Sri Krishna, the master of Golok Vrindavan. They are particles of spiritual effulgence manifesting from Sri Baladev, who resides in Goloka Vrindavan. This is all described at the very beginning of chapter 16. Talks about innumerable jivas are emanating, and they're either performing pastimes directly to Krishna in Madhurya, or they're manifesting from Mul Sankrshan to serve the Lord of Vaikuntha, Lord Narayan. These are two types of eternal Nitya Mukta Jivas. These are described here.
Can that be changed?
No, no. It's like you can't change an orange tree. You can't change an apple tree. An apple tree is an apple tree. It has its function. It has its beauty. Whatever our situation is. The devotee here is asking, can that be changed? But really the heart of it is the individual, in whatever is his sthai bhav, he never ever wants to change it. It's like, for example, Mother Yashoda. She's fully in Vatsalya bhav, and the bliss that she receives from that, she can't conceive, let alone desire, of any other type of relationship that would be more satisfying. Even if she knew the intricacies of Krishna's engagements with the gopis, and even if ontologically we can say, or tattvically, it's considered that Madhurya is higher, still she would not want to change, because that is her intrinsic mood. The cowherd boys, they can't imagine anything more sweet than having this personal relationship with Krishna. As a cow, there isn't anything in existence sweeter than that. They don't want anything sweeter than that. They're fully satisfied with whatever their sthai bhav is. That's the nature of sthai bhav. You're fully satisfied. Because we haven't realized our sthai bhav yet, because we're fluctuating between all kinds of different conceptions, we're thinking that we have the right to make a choice, but actually it's already preordained what is our sthai bhav in relationship with Krishna. That won't be changed. There are three kinds of Bada Mukta Jivas. Aishwarya Gata, those who are attracted to Bhagavan's features of opulence and majesty. Two, Madhurya Gata, those who are attracted to Bhagavan's feature of sweetness. And Brahmjyoti Gata, those who are attracted to Bhagavan's impersonal effulgence. Those who are attracted to his opulence during their period of regulated service become eternal associates of Sri Narayan, the master of the spiritual sky, and they achieve Salokya Mukti, the opulence of residing in his planet. Salokya, Samipya, Sharsti, Sarupya. They receive these liberated conditions. Jivas who are attracted to Sri Krishna's sweetness during their period of sadhana attain direct. He's talking about the jivas in this world now. These Bada Jiva Muktas. This is what we're talking about now. What is your attraction during your sadhana? Is your attraction in your sadhana attracted to Krishna's majesty, or is it attracted to Krishna's madhurya? So we have to decide. And that is determined by our association entirely. If you're in association by whatever arrangement of providence, if you're associating with great stalwart practitioners of bhakti and they're all in a mood of Vaikuntha Bhav, then you will also be so respectful towards that and you will come into that place if that seed is in your heart. And if you're in the association of Rasik Vaishnavas, then that seed will be inspired in your practice also. Jivas who are attracted to Sri Krishna's sweetness during their period of sadhana attain direct service to him when they are liberated in the eternal abodes of Vrindavan and other similar abodes. Jivas who attempt to merge into the impersonal effulgence during their period of sadhana attain Sayuja Mukti. When they are liberated, they merge into his effulgence and are thus completely destroyed in the form of Brahma Sayuja. So this is the tragedy of someone who is focusing on merging into Krishna's effulgence. Brajanath, what is the ultimate destination of the unalloyed bhaktas of Sri Gaurkishore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Babaji, Sri Krishna and Sri Gaurkishore are non-different in their tattva, absolute nature. They are both shelters of Madhurya Ras. However, there is a slight difference between them, because Madhurya Ras has two prakoshths, chambers. Understand this clearly now. Listen carefully. Two prakoshths, two chambers in Madhurya Ras. One is going to be described in Vrindavan and one is described in Goradam. The sweetness is there, but there's a distinction. One is the mood of Madhurya sweetness, and the other is the mood of Audarya, magnanimity. Magnanimity is the mood of Sachinandan exclusively. His magnanimous behavior, his gifts to this world, his generosity to extend himself fully to the conditioned souls. Not any selective, exclusive conditioned souls, but all. When he conditioned souls, when he was performing his preaching, we can say, in South India for 6 years, he just wandered in South India, chanting Hare Krishna, attracting millions to chant Hare Krishna and just distributing prem. He's prem purushottam. He's giving to everybody. This is a mood of magnanimity. This is the mood of Sachinandan Gaurahari. He is so magnanimous. It's described if you do your sadhan bhajan in Vrindavan, then it's actually more like a razor's edge. If you transgress, you can be thrown back so many lifetimes. If you transgress, if you commit offenses in Vrindavan, the offenses are very, very sharp and you will get the result of those offenses. But in Goradam, there's much more mercy flowing. Even if you commit offenses, somehow Mahaprabhu will forgive and forgive again and again and again. So this is Audarya Dham. This is the land of mercy for the most fallen. In Vrindavan, it's there are different dynamics. It'll be described. One is the mood of Madhurya sweetness, and the other is the mood of Audarya magnanimity. Sri Krishna's Swarup is manifest where Madhurya is prominent, and Sri Gauranga's form is manifest where Audarya is prominent. Similarly, the transcendental Vrindavan also has two prakoshths, divisions, Sri Krishna's abode and Sri Gaura's abode. So these two abodes of Prem Dham is in two places. There's Swetadweep, which is Gaura's Dham, and there's Vrindavan. Two different places, but the ultimate we'll read. The Nitya Siddha and Nitya Mukta associates who reside in Sri Krishna's abode are attracted first to Madhurya and then to Audarya. The Nitya Siddha and Nitya Mukta associates who reside in Sri Gaura's abode are blissfully absorbed in Audarya and then Madhurya. So this is the way it's working. I'll read that again. The Nitya Siddha and Nitya Mukta associates who reside in Krishna's abode are attracted first to Madhurya and then to Audarya. The Nitya Siddha and Nitya Mukta associates who reside in Sri Gaura's abode are blissfully absorbed in Audarya and then Madhurya. Some of them reside in both abodes simultaneously by expansions of the self, Swarup Vyuha, while others reside in one spiritual form in only one abode and not in the other. So according to our sadhan bhajan, where is our heart focused? If we reside in Goradham and we're constantly meditating on Vrindavan Dham, then Vrindavan will be our destination. The mercy of Goradham will facilitate us entering Brajadam. Heno Nitai Bine Bai Radha Krishna Paitenai. That the mercy of Nityananda will bring us to Vrindavan Dham. So this is the pathway. If we're performing our bhajan here in Goradham, meditating on Vrindavan, because this was what Mahaprabhu is meditating on himself. He's meditating on the leelas of Krishna in Vrindavan, the Nashanta Leela, Pratalita, Pratalila, Madhyana Leela, etc. Aparana Syain Leela, Ratri Leela, Pradosh Leela, these 8 praharas of the day. Those who only, what did I?
Sorry.
What?
It says here, some of them reside in both abodes simultaneously.
Yes, he's going to say this.
Okay.
He's going to say. Some of them reside in abodes simultaneously by expansions of the self, Swarup Vyuha, while others reside in one spiritual form in only one abode and not in the other. So some, by their desire, everything is going to manifest according to our desire ultimately. If you desire to serve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, at the same time you desire to serve in Vrindavan, you can be manifested with 2 Swarups. This is what he's saying. There can be a circumstance where there are 2 Swarups. One is serving in Vrindavan and one is serving in Goradham. I'll read it again just to make it clear. The Nitya Siddha and Nitya Mukta associates who reside in Sri Gaura's abode are blissfully absorbed in Audarya and then Madhurya. Some of them reside in both abodes simultaneously by expansions of the self, Swarup Vyuha, while others reside in one spiritual form in only one abode and not in the other. So according to your Staibhav, ultimately, what is your internal fixed relationship? Your fixed relationship may be with both Sachinandan Gaurahari and Brajendranandan Shyam Sundar, or Shri Radhika within Vrindavan. It may be both, or it may be just one, exclusive. Generally, it's one. But
According to the seed.
According to the seed that's already in the heart. That seed is already planted. The Staibhav. Those who only worship Sri Gaura during their period of sadhan only serve Sri Gaura when they achieve perfection, while those who only serve Sri Krishna during their period of sadhan serve Sri Krishna on achieving perfection. Very clear. If you just focus on Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and serve him during your sadhan, then you will serve Sri Gaura when you achieve perfection. You will come to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And while those who only serve Sri Krishna during their period of sadhan serve Sri Krishna on achieving perfection. So depending on the focus of your sadhan, on your desire. And that focus will be determined by your association. Your association will inspire you in one or the other direction. The association that you're taking. Your original Staibhav, Jivera Sarup Hoy Krishnera Nityadas, is to serve Krishna. But the actual activity of that service is going to be um, fully matured in the association that we keep. The association will fully mature that seed. However, those who worship the forms of both Sri Krishna and Sri Gora during their period of sadhana manifest two forms when they attain perfection. When they attain perfection, this means when they leave their bodies. This means Vastu Siddhi. When you leave your body, you will attain two forms and reside in both abodes simultaneously. So we can't conceive this. This is inconceivable in our conditioned state now, but we can hear this truth and try to appreciate it and try to realize.
Ultimately, a gift from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yes, we can have both. It's like a gift. Everything is a gift from Mahaprabhu. Chanting Hare Krishna is a gift from Mahaprabhu. Coming to the Gordam, everything is a gift there. The truth of the simultaneous oneness and difference of Sri Gora and Sri Krishna is a very confidential secret. This is very Now, everybody remember where this is written. It's at the end of the 17th chapter. Whatever appreciation you have today, in 6 or 7 or 8 months' time, you want to come back and refresh again. Where was it written that I heard that you can have two swarups? At the end of the 17th chapter. Try to index your Jaiva Dharma for reference sakes, because we're only hearing these truths now, but how to assimilate them, how to actually have realization of these, is going to take some time and meditation. We'll need to repeatedly hear and read this again and again, because our Kali Yuga mentality is to be distracted. And as soon as you're distracted from this heavy focus of attention to what is sudden, then all the sudden will just be lost like holes in the bucket. It'll just come out. When Brajanath had heard all these teachings about the state of the jivas who are liberated from Maya, he could no longer keep his composure. Brimming with emotion, he fell down at elderly Babaji's lotus feet, crying profusely. Babaji Mahashai picked him up and embraced him. It was already quite late in the night. Brajanath took leave of Babaji Mahashai and went home totally engrossed in meditating on Babaji's instructions. When Brajanath reached home, he took his meal, and while doing so, he warned his grandmother sternly, "Grandmother, if you people want to see me here, stop all this talk about my marriage, and do not keep any sort of contact with Veni Madhav. He is my greatest enemy, and from tomorrow I will never speak with him again. You should also neglect him." So now we're coming down with a sort of crash into the material reality that Brajanath has to endure. So we are like that in the material world. We're sitting here hearing these divine instructions, but then all of a sudden, crash, we're going to come into the material play, so to speak, in our practical activities in the world. How much are we going to be able to carry with us of that divine consciousness that we're picking up in our study, etc.? So that's going to be determined on my quantity of sadhana that I'm able to perform daily. If every single day I'm able to read focused, if I'm able to chant, if I'm able to associate, if I'm able to worship the deity, so many of these activities, and I'm gradually, as I'm growing older, we can say, or developing, I'm increasing more and more my involvement in these transcendental activities. And then gradually there will come a time when I only have that in my life and nothing else exists. And that's when real detachment can start to manifest in the heart. That there's no more consideration about the material, flickering, temporary activities of the world. It starts to go away. This is like an organic process, really and truly. It's not something that bang, just generally it doesn't just happen like that. It needs a reconditioning of the mind. The mind is conditioned, so we need to recondition it. It's a gradual process, a gradual assimilation of these truths. And by that hearing regularly, then slowly, slowly, these truths start to enter the heart. When they start to enter the heart, then realization can come. It's described, this knowledge is called Sangvit Shakti. This is described again in the 14th chapter. And from the Sangvit Shakti, then it comes into the heart and mixes with the Hladini Shakti. And then realization will manifest. So it's a process, it's a process, it's a process. Don't be impatient on the process. Just realize daily, 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 this devotion and especially this appreciation of my own absolute insignificance in relationship to Krishna's complete fullness. If this is fully realized, then this is true faith. This is real faith. Then we have become a man of God, so to speak. We have become a man of Krishna. We've become a true servant of Krishna because we've realized Krishna's supremacy over all my little conniverings and my little deceptions and the little games that I play with the mind constantly. When I realize Krishna's glory and Krishna's greatness, then I will just want to remain in that place of glorifying him. Just like the beautiful pastime we read today of Chitraketu Maharaj, when he was so attached to his son, he was given a son by Angira Rishi, and then his son died, and then his lamentation was overwhelming, and then Narad Muni came and brought the son back to life, and the boy spoke Jiva Tattva to everyone there. They all realized the temporary nature of the material world. But then Chitraketu, he was blessed with a mantra from Narada Muni, practiced the mantra, and wanted to do nothing except serve Anantashesh. This was where the mantra was taking him, and he was just completely immersed in that place. So it's a gradual. That pastime goes from a bewildered king to having a son to dying lamentation. It walks through the whole spectrum of life, all these different tumultuous circumstances that we can go through. But the culmination is to come to the lotus feet of the Lord in total submission to his glories. Brajanath's grandmother was very intelligent. Understanding Brajanath's mood, she decided to postpone any question of marriage. From the kind of sentiments that he is displaying, she thought, if he is forced too much, he might leave for Vrindavan or Varanasi. Let Bhagavan decide as he will. Thus ends the 17th chapter of Jivadhamma entitled Prameya, Jivas free from Maya. So then there's a little footnote about counting the waves, and I've already described that. So you can read that yourselves. So tomorrow we'll begin this remarkable chapter 18, Veda Abheda Tattva, how the Jiva is one with Krishna, yet separate from Krishna, one and simultaneously different from Krishna. So this 18th chapter will begin tomorrow. Please absorb the truths in these 3 chapters about the Jiva. They're all totally extraordinary in their own lights, but then when we put all 3 together and get an overview of all 3 of them, then we have some real impression of our predicament in this material world. We understand why we're here, and we understand it has to be up to my responsibility to get myself out. That's what in the 16th chapter we learned, and so many details about the gross and subtle bodies, and all of these details together, and then the mukta jivas we've just talked about in this 17th chapter. Most powerful. What are the, especially that one beautiful verse about the symptoms of the mukta jivas we were describing, that they don't age, etc. Where is it? The liberated soul on page 386. The liberated soul has 8 qualities. He is freed from all sinful activity, as well as the addiction to sinful activities that arises because of nescience of Maya. He is not subject to the miseries of old age. He always remains young and fresh, and he has no tendency to decay. He never comes to an end or dies. He is never morose. He has no sensual desires. He has a natural inclination towards serving Krishna with no other desires, and all of his desires become realized. These 8 qualities are absent from the Bada Jiva. So these 8 qualities make up what is the Mukta Jiva. So that was on page 386. So we can pick out the highlights ourselves, what strikes our hearts most deeply and significantly, and keep those in our notes and refresh them regularly. Without these refreshing points, we'll just forget these truths. We'll get immersed, covered. Maya is so strong. Maya is really, really, really strong. Or rather, I am really, really weak because I become attracted to her in a moment because of my conditioned state. This Bal Shakti. I'm trying to encourage this Bal Shakti to manifest more in my heart. So Jai Vedama ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Gaur Premanande.